Chapter 1337. The flames were still burning fiercely. The entire place where the flames had exploded had almost turned into nothingness. It was not nothingness as seen by the naked eye, but nothingness at the spatial level. The extremely majestic power had even blown the four core energies that made up the world into nothingness. That was the first time Lin Feng had used such shocking and powerful power. He had exhausted all of his Saint King level star source energy and was barely able to stand up. He was severely injured. In his left hand, a light flashed and the shield of truth appeared. Even though he had no power to fight back and his body was on the verge of exhaustion, he was not willing to give up even if there was only a slight chance. Is he dead? Lin Feng's eyes were burning and his face was pale. Although the attack just now was powerful, he was not sure if it could kill the Blood Tiger Monster Clan powerhouse. To be honest, he estimated that there was only a 20% chance. But there is at least a 30% chance that he will be seriously injured, Lin Feng thought to himself. He was still a little confident. If the Blood Tiger Monster Clan powerhouse was at his peak state, the chances of him being seriously injured was less than 10%. But if he was injured, it was a different story. Everything depended on luck. Did he win? Only a genius would know the answer. Even Gu Sheng, who had clearly witnessed the entire battle, had a solemn expression and deep doubts in his eyes. Zila, Zida. The space was repaired bit by bit. The entire Douling world was also a kind of power that had the ability to repair itself. The shattered space was repaired bit by bit, and the core energies that had disappeared slowly recovered. The ferocious flames were also dimming bit by bit. There was always a time when power would disappear. At this moment, Lin Feng's eyes were widening. He carefully stared at the place where the flames had exploded, where the battle had been most intense, but he could not see anything. It could be anything. Dead. This thought instantly appeared in Lin Feng's mind. Even the shield of truth in his left hand trembled slightly. Not only was there no aura, there was no corpse, as if it had evaporated. It was as if it had been blasted to pieces by the flames and its soul scattered. It was also as if it had been swallowed by the spatial turbulence of this different dimension and had disappeared. The only thing he could be sure of was that the Blood Tiger Monster Clan powerhouse disappeared. If there were corpses, it would be easier to identify them. But at this moment, not to mention a corpse, not even a broken limb or flesh was left. Even the blood had been burned to ashes by the extreme flames. Not a single trace was left behind. Lin Feng was completely stunned. On the other hand, Gu Sheng's eyes were shining brightly. In the sorcerer territory, outside the fearsome ground great formation. It was a powerful being with a huge body, at least 100 meters tall. In the sorcerer realm, as long as any sorcerer tribesman reached a height of 100 meters, neither taller nor shorter, it meant that they had become a true Saint King. This one had the face of a human and the body of a beast. His ears drooped down like a dog's, and he wore a green, snake-like accessory that flickered with a strange green light. He was from a Shi by Lich race. Unlike the other Shi by Liches, this Shi by Lich's powerhouse had a clear star mark on his forehead, and there was a crown-like existence above his head. High and mighty, his aura was extremely powerful. He was one of the 12 wizard kings of the wizard tribe, the corpse wizard king Shi Bai. He was also the severely injured wizard tribesman that Kuwait Tu and Lam Tok Ti had jointly killed. But now Hua, his originally dim eyes suddenly shone with a bright light. Although they were still dim, they were completely different from the dim light they had been before. This dimness was the weakness of his soul. It was a sign that he truly had consciousness and not a corpse. Pa! Pa! His body trembled, and the star source energy was released uncontrollably. The Shibai Lich King clenched his fists tightly and roared at the sky. He was in a state of madness, and his hysterical emotions seemed to have vented all the depression in his heart. His roar was like thunder, and it seemed to shake the sky. With a cold aura, it scared away the surrounding demon beasts and wizard tribesmen. This was the venting of extreme anger. Goddamn humans. It wasn't easy for me to sneak into the demon tribe and assimilate my physical body. You actually ruined my life's cultivation. Damn it. His body trembled violently, and the wound that had just been injured burst open again, and blood flowed out. However, the Shibai Lich King didn't care at all. He even wanted the pain to be more intense and clearer. Although his eyes were dim, they were filled with hatred and anger. A shocking murderous intent was released along with the Star Source energy. No, he was no longer the Shibai Lich King, but the demon Kuei Tuesday. Since he could occupy the body of the Blood Tiger tribe's Kuiken, Kuei too could naturally occupy other bodies. However, it consumed a lot of his soul, especially since his soul had just been severely injured by Lin Feng. It was now extremely weak, like a plant that had lost its water. However, consuming a lot of soul energy was better than losing his life on the battlefield. All day long, I didn't expect to be pecked blind by a wild goose. Goddamned humans! Kuei 2's face was ashen, and he was flustered and exasperated. If he had been killed by the ancient race fighter, he might not have been so angry. However, he had lost to a human warrior. How could he tolerate that? How could he tolerate that? With his strength, dealing with that human kid was just a matter of seconds. Who would have thought that he would be ambushed? Under normal circumstances, even if his body took that attack head-on, he would at most be slightly injured. However, he had coincidentally fought 300 rounds with the ancient race fighter, and his body was severely injured. Although that attack wasn't fatal, it was enough to make him lose his ability to fight. He was completely sure that with his heavily injured body, he wouldn't be able to take a single blow from the ancient race fighter. By then, it would be too late to change bodies. He could only harden his heart and sacrifice his arm to save himself. Fortunately, I held back. Kuei 2 gritted his teeth, his gaze dark. Before entering the formation, he had left the corpse of the puppet outside the formation as a safety precaution. On one hand, he would know if there were other people trying to break through the formation after him. On the other hand, he was afraid that there would be danger in the formation, so he left it in case he needed it. However, he didn't expect that it would really come in handy. He didn't die in the hands of the ancient race fighter, but lost to a human kid. This made him extremely angry. Damn it! Kuei 2 punched the ground, his expression ugly. The ground shook, and a huge crater appeared. Kuei 2's eyes shone with a cold light. Needless to say, his soul was injured. His soul was originally the soul of the Monster Clan, the soul of the Blood Tiger Clan. It was perfectly compatible with Kuiken's body, but it wasn't so compatible with the body of the Sorcerer Clan. Although this body was very strong and had the strength of a Sorcerer King at the peak of the Sage King realm, but it would take a long time for him to display his true strength. I can only put up with it for now. When the strength of my soul recovers, I'll think of a way. I'll seize a new body of the Blood Tiger Clan. Kuei 2's gaze deepened, and he made up his mind. He had no choice but to take this step, but he had to take it. Right now, he didn't have any other choice. I'll remember today's grudge. Human, ancient race brat, it's a small world. Just wait and see. With a cold snort, Kuei 2 rose from the ground, and his huge body instantly disappeared. Perhaps his new body still had the strength to fight, but with his soul severely injured and his new body strength, even if he entered again, he would definitely not be the ancient race's opponent. Kuei 2 was extremely rational and cautious. How could he take such a big risk? As for the natural unique treasure, he could only plan for it in the future. Really, it had completely disappeared. Lin Feng watched as the space gradually recovered, healing like an injured person. There was no longer any Monster Clan aura in the surroundings. Everything returned to normal. As for his body, it was gradually recovering, and he gradually regained some strength. Although he still didn't have the strength to fight with Gu Sheng, he could at least use the Shield of Truth and activate the 0-degree defense to completely protect himself. He just didn't know if Gu Sheng had the ability to shatter the space like the Blood Tiger Demon Clan expert and use another method to deal with him. What he didn't know was, what was he thinking? Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes were bright as he looked at Gu Sheng below. There was no change in his expression. Those eyes seemed to contain endless mysteries. His extremely handsome and beautiful face seemed to be frozen at that moment. He stood upright, looking at the void, thinking about something and deciding on something. Lin Feng's left hand flashed. He pondered in his heart and didn't disturb him. The more time he had, the safer he would be. Time slowly passed. Gu Sheng didn't move at all, as if he had been immobilized. It felt very strange. What does he want to do? Lin Feng couldn't figure it out, but he didn't know that Gu Sheng's heart was in a perilous situation, and his emotions were in a mess. If he could attack, he would have done so long ago. Originally, he wanted to use Kuei 2 to kill Lin Feng, and then he would attack Kuei Tuesday. Who knew that Kuei 2 would be defeated by Lin Feng? It was completely unexpected. His plan was completely disrupted. Right now, it was difficult to advance or retreat. Killing Lin Feng was as easy as lifting a finger. If Kuei 2 could do it, he could do it too, and he would definitely do it better than Kuei Tuesday. With Lin Feng's strength, he still couldn't unleash the absolute power of the Shield of Truth. He had 100% confidence that he could make Lin Feng bow down in 3 moves, but could he do that? Even if he obtained the heavenly treasure, what would the result be if he went against the heavens? He would incur the wrath of the heavens. The result was unpredictable, but if he didn't do anything and let Lin Feng leave, it would mean that this trip to the sorcerer territory was officially over, and he would have no more interactions with the heavenly treasure. It would be a huge failure. Not only would it leave a mark on his life, but it would also cause him to lose the opportunity to possess the strongest power in the Douling world. He wouldn't be able to shake the sorcerer Emperor Jiang and the demon commander for a long time. Perhaps he was still one of the most powerful beings in the Dou spirit world, but he definitely wasn't the most powerful one. As the prodigy of the Gu family and the new star created by the 7 ancient gods, how could he face his fellow Gu family members if he were to miss this opportunity? Gu Sheng's eyes were constantly changing. His body trembled slightly, and there were too many changes in his emotions. What should he do? Chapter 1338. This answer was neither difficult nor easy. Closing his eyes, Gu Sheng faced his heart and felt a deep sense of heaviness. Suddenly, he leaped up into the air. Pa! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The Shield of Truth instantly bloomed with radiance and blocked in front of him. However, he did not use his full strength. At this moment, Gu Sheng was still some distance away from him. However, it was different from before. Now, they were on the same level and looked at each other. What strong soul power! Lin Feng shuddered. His soul was already strong enough. However, when facing Gu Sheng's eyes, he felt an intense shock. Gu Sheng's soul was much stronger than his. Gu Sheng's bright eyes looked at him with too many complicated emotions. As expected of one of the 7 great ancient gods of the ancient race, Lin Feng thought to himself. This was the first time he saw Gu Sheng's true strength. The Gu Sheng he met at the oasis was completely different from the current Gu Sheng. At that time, he was smiling and approachable. However, right now, he was filled with all kinds of mysteries and power. At this point, the Shield of Truth could not help but shine brighter. However, don't worry. I won't attack you. A clear voice sounded. Lin Feng was stunned. Looking at Gu Sheng's changing eyes, his heart was filled with doubts. You are luckier than me. Gu Sheng's voice was a little downcast. There was a complicated look in his eyes as he pursed his lips. His expression was a little gloomy. He glanced at the Shield of Truth. His eyes no longer flickered as he looked at Lin Feng as he slowly said, "Since it has chosen you, then cherish it." Reluctance flashed in Gu Sheng's eyes. He closed his eyes and sighed softly. If he really wanted to snatch the heavenly treasure by hook or by crook, it was not that he did not have any methods. He could completely trap Lin Feng and wait for the next batch of experts to arrive. He could even toss out a heaven-grade treasure and lure a group of experts over. With Lin Feng's current state, let alone Saint King's, he might not even be able to deal with a martial sage. At that time, he would be able to reap the benefits. It was not impossible for him to obtain the heavenly treasure. However, he disdained to do such a thing and would never do it. Possessing the bloodline of the ancient race, he was the proudest genius of the ancient race. He was the rising star of the ancient race, the future emperor. Such a despicable act, even if he obtained the heavenly treasure, would be the ugliest stain in his life that would never be erased. He was Gu Sheng. This was his pride and dignity. Until we meet again. Gu Sheng opened his eyes and took a deep look at Lin Feng. Just as he turned around and was about to leave, he suddenly paused and slowly opened his mouth. Let me remind you, that Blood Tiger Demon Clan expert may not be dead. As his voice fell, Gu Sheng's figure disappeared in an uproar, leaving behind Lin Feng's eyes that flickered unpredictably. There was a lot of information. He's not dead. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he pondered. Indeed, he also felt that it was strange. No matter how powerful the fused flames were, he estimated that it would at most severely injure the Blood Tiger Demon Clan expert. Even if he was lucky enough to trigger the Blood Tiger Demon Clan expert's original injuries and kill him, the possibility of completely destroying such an expert's physical body was almost zero, unless his soul has disappeared. Lin Feng nodded thoughtfully. If it was someone else, it might be difficult to understand. However, he had his original body and doppelganger. If he encountered a fatal danger, it was not impossible for him to give up his physical body, abandon the rook to save the king. However, unless he was in a desperate situation, he would not use this move. He may be like me, having another doppelganger or even his original body. Lin Feng's heart trembled inwardly. He did not doubt Gu Sheng's words. There was no need for him to lie to him. With his strength, he could sense it more clearly than him. Moreover, if Gu Sheng wanted to kill him now, it would be as easy as crushing an ant. However, he did not do so. Instead, he chose to leave alone and even gave up the chance to obtain the heavenly treasure. Why did he do so? He did not know. However, he was sure that Gu Sheng was not an enemy to him. Huff! Lin Feng let out a long breath. Hundreds of mixed feelings welled up in his heart as he shook his head with a bitter smile. He did not expect to experience so much in such a short period of time. One moment, he was in heaven, and the next moment, he was in hell. Ups and downs, up and down, up and down, up and down. He thought that he was going to die this time. However, he did not expect that not only did he survive, but he also made consecutive breakthroughs and obtained a heavenly treasure that everyone coveted. The third heavenly treasure. This trip to the Sorcerer Tribe's territory was not in vain. Let's leave this troublesome place first. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he nodded. He had just recovered a little of his strength. In a group of volcanoes that were burning with raging flames, Lin Feng settled down in this majestic fire elemental region. Although this place was originally controlled by Zhurong's sorcerer tribe, his doppelganger alone was enough to kill all the Zhurong sorcerer tribe members. Not a single one of them was left alive. He even obtained a considerable amount of sorcerer essence. The trip to the sorcerer tribe's territory had not only improved his original body, but his doppelganger had also improved rapidly. Although he had not broken through to the Saint King level, the increase in his strength was substantial. Not to mention other things, just the execution and coordination of the spear move Cloud's Rise was far better than before. In addition, he had comprehended the mystery Sparrow Kill. Although he did not truly possess the Constellation Tao, his mastery and comprehension of the mystery were not low. Against a mere Saint-level Zhurong sorcerer tribe, no matter how many Saint-level powerhouses there were, he could only kill one with a single spear move. Even the Saint King-level Zhurong sorcerer tribe was not a problem. Very strong. Lin Feng did not realize that he had unknowingly stepped into the top of the Do Ling world's pyramid. Not to mention the beginner Saint King level, most of the middle and high Saint King level powerhouses might not be his match. However, after entering the sorcerer tribe's territory, he saw Sorcerer Emperor Jiang, Demon Commander level powerhouses, various Sorcerer Kings level powerhouses, Ancient Clans God's Favored Son, Demon Kuei II, and so on. This made him seem much weaker. In fact, if he were to be placed in the Second Great Sorcerer War among the 12 Saint Lords of the human race, he would be ranked in the top 5, or even the top 3. Phew, inhale. He took deep breaths and nourished his body. Lin Feng sat cross-legged at the bottom of the largest volcano in the valley. He felt the scorching heat and the rich fire element boiling. He only felt a sense of warmth and contentment. With his current strength, he could basically control any type of flame that existed in the Douling world. Compared to the Zhurong sorcerer tribe, who was known for their control of fire, it was nothing difficult. His body, under the condensation of the fire element, recovered at an astonishing speed. His star source energy had long been saturated. However, the recovery of his soul energy was not something that could be done overnight. However, only consuming 30% of his soul energy did not affect his strength much. The flames were blazing. Lin Feng nourished his body, but he did not waste time. At the same time, he familiarized himself with the upgraded devouring flames. Now, it had truly reached the 80th level and entered the Saint King level like the flames of rebirth. However, compared to the flames of rebirth, which mainly focused on defense, the flames of devouring were much stronger. Its power was needless to say. During the battle with Kuei II, if not for the upgrade of the flames of devouring, he would not have been able to maintain the balance and successfully fuse them, let alone unleashing such a powerful fusion power. After all, a true fusion, even if it was just a preliminary fusion, required a completely balanced power of the same level. This was very important. It's very difficult, Lin Feng thought to himself. Fusion required a strong ability to control fire, as well as a great concentration of mind. Previously, he was able to use it successfully because he had a certain amount of power. When he was on the verge of death and faced extreme danger, he was able to unleash power that he did not have before. However, being able to use it in battle proved that his body had the potential to do so. Now, he could not use it for the time being, but his potential was still fully unleashed. At the very least, the path ahead was very clear. With a light thought, suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and the flames were instantly extinguished. A look of pleasant surprise appeared on his face. He suddenly leaped up and appeared at the mouth of the volcano. Not far away, wings swayed its branches, emitting a red and green light, as if enjoying the scorching temperature here. The winged bug's vision covered the entire valley, allowing him to clearly monitor every inch of the surrounding area. If he encountered any danger, he would be able to react quickly. However, he was overjoyed to have obtained such a precious treasure, so he couldn't help but feel nervous. Although Gu Sheng had left and the Blood Tiger Demon Clan's expert had been killed by him, there was no guarantee that the news would not spread. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Once people found out that he was compatible with a heavenly treasure, the news would spread from one person to 10, and from 10 to 100, and then it would be really troublesome. He was different from the shaman Emperor Jiang and the monster clan commander. He lacked sufficient strength and backing, so he was destined to get into trouble because of his wealth. Right now, he could only take one step at a time. However, swoosh, a red figure sped over in front of him. Lin Feng smiled. At this moment, all of his worries and pressure disappeared. Instead, it was replaced by a strong sense of kinship. Looking at the hurried and flustered face, it was his mother, Jia Yaju, whom he had not seen for a long time. She had come. "Fenger, are you all right?" Jia Yaju was extremely worried. Her concern was evident in her words. She touched Lin Feng's face with both hands, and streams of warm air flowed into his body. Feeling the waves of warmth in his body, Lin Feng smiled and said, "I'm fine, mother." When he was surrounded, the first person he thought of was his mother. With his mother's unfathomable strength, if she could arrive in time, she would definitely be able to save him. It was a pity that distant water couldn't put out a nearby fire. After all, his mother was in the Boorish wasteland, and the journey was long. Plus, she didn't have an accurate location. It wouldn't be easy for her to find him. Fortunately, he managed to turn the danger into safety in the end, barely surviving the crisis. He could be considered lucky. After a careful inspection, Jeju heaved a sigh of relief. She patted her chest and said, "You scared mother." Lin Feng smiled apologetically and said, "Mother, I've made you come for nothing. What are you talking about? Jiaju rolled her eyes and said softly, as long as you're safe and sound, it's worth it even if Mother comes for nothing thousands of times. Their eyes met, and they smiled, revealing a strong sense of kinship. Fonga, this is... Suddenly, Jiayaju's beautiful eyes lit up. She caught a glimpse of the imprint on Lin Feng's left hand. The shield of truth flashed with strange engravings and energy. Although it restrained its aura, how could it hide from Jiayaju, whose strength was top-notch? Moreover, blood was thicker than water. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he said with a smile, "Misfortune is a blessing in disguise. This is my harvest this time, Mother. Heavenly treasure, shield of truth." Chapter 1339. Sorcerer Realm. Compared to the fight for the heavenly rare treasures, the appearance of the meteor rare treasure was even more shocking. After all, there were only 3 heavenly treasures, and only those who were truly at the top of the Douling world were qualified to fight for them. However, meteor sky treasures were different. From the Earth rank to the Heaven rank, meteor sky treasures weren't just divided into different ranks, they were extremely numerous. There were a total of 108 items. With such a huge base, it naturally caused a commotion. Moreover, there were more than 10 heaven-ranked treasures amongst them. Even a single heaven-ranked treasure was extremely precious, let alone so many. The news had already spread like wildfire. In the territory of the shaman tribe, other than the experts who had originally come to fight for the heavenly treasure, there were more and more saint-level existences mixed in. There were ancients, humans, and demons. Even though they were at odds with the sorcerer tribe and were engaged in continuous battles, the demons still entered the sorcerer tribe's territory fearlessly. Saint-level existences could go anywhere without any restrictions. The commander of the demon clan and the bull demon could enter without making a sound, and so could the other saint-level demons. However, whether they could make it out alive was another matter. After all, this was the territory of the sorcerer race, the headquarters of the sorcerer race, the gathering place. Once the demon clan was discovered, there would be a swift and decisive extermination. Even though the Magi were not united, they were still united against the demons. However, the demons were not stupid. Since he was already here, he might as well make the best of it. Heaven-ranked treasures can be sensed by their auras. As long as they are not compatible, one can sense the existence of their spiritual consciousness. The cold voice was somewhat depressed. It was a middle-aged man with a dignified aura. His gloomy eyes carried a deep flame, and his aura was extremely powerful. Qi Meng of the Celestial Canine Clan. First, he lost his only son, and then his wife was killed by Lin Feng. Qi Meng was about to go crazy. Fortunately, his mental fortitude was extremely strong. In the face of one bad news after another, he stubbornly endured it, and even relied on the power of hatred to achieve a great breakthrough in his strength and step into the level of a Saint King. Qi Meng was one of the vanguards of the Demon Clan. He was the leader of one of the teams that had followed the Demon Commander and Bull Demon into the Magi realm. Every small team of the Demon race was given a mission. As for Qi Meng's group, they had yet to complete their mission. "Yes, Captain." The 4 powerhouses beside him nodded. Their eyes were filled with arrogance and murderous intent. Although they were in human form, the 5 of them were actually Demon Clan experts. One's aura could not lie. However, if he transformed into a human, it would help him in his cultivation and comprehension. Secondly, he would not attract too much attention in the Magi territory. After all, demons were the same size as the Magi. They were too huge, and their true bodies could be seen at a glance. Moreover, after revealing his true form, his aura was even more majestic and difficult to control. 4 Earth-ranked treasures. Qi Meng's gaze was extremely cold, and it flickered with a bright light. So long as we obtain a heaven-ranked treasure, we'll be able to complete the mission. We can't lose to the other teams. Qi Meng's killing intent boiled, the flames sparkling. His resolute aura was no longer that of a saint, but that of a Saint King. In the Yao clan, Those who could become captains were all Saint Kings. Only those with absolute strength could lead Saint-level experts of other races. The strong were respected. This was an iron law in the Yao clan. No race could override this iron law. This included the 4 emperors and the Yao clan commanders. Spread out, Qi Meng shouted. The 4 figures immediately spread out in 4 different directions, searching separately. Although there was a certain amount of danger in doing so, they could not care so much in the current situation. The longer they dragged on, the smaller their chances of obtaining a heaven-ranked treasure. Moreover, to Qi Meng, what did the life and death of the other Yao clans have to do with him? The heaven-ranked treasure was what he was after. He wanted to become stronger. Layers upon layers of volcanoes. Boom, boom, boom. From time to time, volcanoes would erupt. Natural and man-made disasters would occur. The fiery red color reflected the entire sky red. The boiling magma was shockingly hot. If it came into direct contact with a Star Lord, or even a Star Sector-level warrior might not be able to withstand it. However, to the mother and son sitting at the mouth of the volcano, it was nothing. The flames outside their body sparkled. The protective flames easily absorbed the flames of the magma without any effort at all. Phoenix Constellation. It was a Saint King level existence. Flames? Legend had it that phoenixes were born from flames. How could they be afraid of flames? I see. Jia Yaju nodded in realization. Her beautiful eyes flashed, and she revealed a faint smile. That's more or less what happened, Mother. Lin Feng smiled and told his mother the whole story of him entering the Witch Clan. There was nothing to hide from his family, including the existence of the Shield of Truth and the strength of its power. He shared the joyous news with his mother. He had finally obtained a heavenly treasure. Even if the process was tortuous and dangerous, the result was excellent. Congratulations, Feng. Jia Yaju smiled. With the protection of this treasure, I believe your strength will definitely rise to another level in a short period of time. Lin Feng said softly, if I can learn the ability of the Shield of Truth, at least my life will be guaranteed. Jia Yaju nodded and suddenly frowned. But according to what you said just now, Gu Sheng and the Blood Tiger Demon Clan experts saw you with the Shield of Truth. The news must not be leaked from their mouths. Otherwise, you'll be in big trouble. I know. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. But I'm afraid it's not up to me to decide. After pondering for a while, Jiayu said slowly, Mother will help you think of a way to deal with Gu Sheng. Wait for me to go back and discuss with your grandfather. Perhaps we should go and meet Gu Sheng or ancient god Wu Feng, who has a good relationship with the ancient Phoenix clan. But Feng, or since Gu Sheng voluntarily gave up, he should have some scruples. I believe that with his character, this matter will not be spread around. Jia Yaju's beautiful eyes flashed as she analyzed. Lin Feng nodded. He also felt that Gu Sheng must have some difficulties that forced him to give up the fight. After all, he and Gu Sheng did not have a close relationship. No one would believe that Gu Sheng would give up such a great opportunity for a so-called friend that he met once. Even he himself felt that it was inconceivable. Just now, with Gu Sheng's strength, it would be easy for him to kill the severely injured Gu Sheng. The biggest problem should be that Blood Tiger Demon Clan expert, Jia Yaju said with a serious expression. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. Mother, you also think that he is not dead? More than 90%. Jia Yaju nodded. He might not have 2 bodies. Perhaps some treasure allowed him to escape. After all, even his corpse has not been found. Or perhaps it is, as you said, Feng, that he abandoned his physical body to find a new one. All kinds of possibilities exist. More than 90%. This probability was almost certain. Lin Feng's eyes brightened, but his heart sank. If he had only guessed before, then what his mother said now was the truth. With his mother's experience, the possibility of her judgment being wrong was very small. Moreover, what worried him the most was that he had seen this Blood Tiger Demon Clan expert before. He was the Demon Clan expert that he had seen by chance in the hot land with the winged insect. He had a secret with Lam Tok Ti. Compared to him, Lamb Talk Tea made him feel more uneasy. Don't worry too much, Feng. Jia Yaju's beautiful eyes flashed as she patted Lin Feng's shoulder. Even if the sky falls, Mother will help you. At most, your secret will be exposed. With Mother protecting you, let's see who can touch you. Valiant and formidable, Jia Yaju's eyes shone. In the past, she could not protect her husband and son. But now, she would not make the same mistake again. Lin Feng laughed involuntarily. I'm fine, Mother. Waving the shield of truth in his left hand, Lin Feng smiled and said, I have it to protect me. The abilities of the shield of truth are each stronger than the other. As long as I have enough time to cultivate, I believe that I will be able to protect myself soon. Although he said so, he was not confident in his heart. After all, it was an existence that surpassed heaven-grade treasures. To master its ability was not something that could be done overnight. The stronger the ability, the more time it would take to comprehend it. And what he lacked most now was time. However, there was no need to worry, Mother. Jia Yaju smiled. Perhaps the situation is not that bad. We are just overthinking it. Even if that Blood Tiger Demon Clan expert knows that the shield of truth is in your hands, Feng, he might not make a big fuss. After all, whether it is a human or a demon, everyone has their own selfish motives. That's true. Lin Feng smiled. Indeed, there was no need to think so much. What should come would come, and what should not come, he would not come. That Blood Tiger Demon Clan expert lost to him because he underestimated his opponent. With his strength fully recovered, he would definitely come back personally. How could he let others do it? Seeing that Feng is fine, Mother is relieved. Jia Yaju's beautiful eyes flashed. There was no need to describe the affection in her eyes. She leaned over and gently hugged Lin Feng. She said softly, Be careful. If anything happens, inform Mother immediately. Understand? Feeling the thick warmth of family, Lin Feng smiled and nodded. From his mother's hug, he felt a strong reluctance to part. If she could, she would like to accompany him forever. However, she still had something important to do. She had to find the Star Origin Stone to help him restart the Netherworld ship. At the same time, she had to save her father. At the same time, she had to return to the ancient clan to see Gusheng. She had to help him resolve his worries. Everything she had done was not for herself. You have to be careful too, Mother, Lin Feng said softly. There was no need to say too much. The mother and son's blood was thicker than water. They knew each other very well. Jia Yaju smiled faintly. She slowly stood up and looked deeply at Lin Feng. Without saying anything, she left with a smile on her face. With her strength, she left without leaving a trace. She left decisively. However, was it really that simple? Lin Feng closed his eyes and calmed himself down. Actually, his mother was the same as him. She was even more emotional. She left in a hurry because she was afraid that her tears would fall. He wasn't it the same? In this world, the most important thing was family. Chapter 1340. Jia Yaju had left. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he looked in the direction where the fire had disappeared. The fire aura that was exactly the same as his lingered in the air. It was so familiar. Although he was reluctant to part with her, he should let it go. After all, both he and his mother still had a lot of things to do. Phew! Lin Feng exhaled softly and turned to look in the direction of the danger zone. He frowned slightly. There's still no news. I hope Brother Jean is safe. Lin Feng shook his head as he muttered in his heart. He activated the new compass in his left hand, but there was still no news from Jean Ji. He dialed the number, but it was turned off. He did not know if Jean Ji did not activate the communication compass or if there were other reasons. Thinking of this, Lin Feng could not help but clench his fists. After his main body settled down, his clone returned to the danger zone to search for Jean Ji's whereabouts. However, with the disappearance of the Shield of Truth, the formation was completely shattered. Only ruins were left. There was not a single shadow left. Because of the shocking battle, the entire danger zone had a suffocating feeling. The killing aura was extremely strong. No one would stay in such a place for long. Heaven helps the worthy. With Brother Jin's strength and the heaven-grade treasure, he shouldn't have died in the formation. Maybe something happened. Lin Feng nodded slowly. He was not sure about the rest, but the Shield of Truth had a deep impression of him. His intuition told him that Jin Ji did not die in the formation. Let's look for him again. Anyway, my main body is not fully recovered. It doesn't matter if I wait a few more days. Lin Feng thought to himself. Then, his figure flashed and returned to the crater of the volcano. He went into seclusion again. Time passed by slowly. The Sorcerer Tribe realm gradually calmed down. There were pros and cons. This time, the phenomenon appeared in the Sorcerer Tribe realm, allowing the Sorcerer Tribe to take advantage of the situation. However, at the same time, the damage to the Sorcerer Tribe realm was also quite huge. In order to obtain the treasure, countless neutral experts and even ancient and human experts had attacked the Sorcerer Tribe, let alone the Demon Tribe. Sorcerer Emperor Jiang had predicted the situation. After defeating the Demon Tribe commander, he led the Sorcerer Tribe experts to battle and did not participate in the battle for the treasure. However, it was impossible for the entire Sorcerer Tribe to be mobilized. They had still lost a lot of their strength. Fortunately, Di Jiang had obtained a heavenly treasure. All in all, the Sorcerer Tribe had earned a lot. There were joys and sorrows. The individual strength of the human powerhouses was not enough. Many people who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth came to fight for the treasures to try their luck, and there were even more casualties. However, there were always a few people with heaven-defying luck who reaped bountiful rewards. For example, Shijixin. Not only was the little girl's strength extraordinary, her luck was even more heaven-defying. Jinji's luck could be considered pretty good to be able to obtain a heaven-tier treasure that was more compatible with him. However, the little girl's luck was even better. Along the way, he had obtained more than 1 black and 1 gold earth rank innate treasure. He had also obtained a compatible heaven rank red innate treasure, which was on the same level as the heaven rank treasure that Jinji was compatible with. But this was not the end. While all the human powerhouses were exhausted and racking their brains to find even an earth rank treasure, Shijixin had accidentally entered a cave and picked up a heaven rank Xiantian treasure at the entrance of the cave. Furthermore, it wasn't red or orange, but yellow rank. The grade was quite high. However, when luck came, it could not be stopped. This was a main road. Countless powerhouses had passed by here, but no one had entered this small cave to take a look. After all, according to common sense, it was impossible for a meteor treasure to fall into the cave, right? This was obviously impossible. Who would have thought that there was a completely different world at the entrance of the cave that was filled with spirit chi? Heaven-ranked treasures had spiritual consciousness. Like other spiritual items, they loved places with dense spirit chi the most. That day, Lin Feng was able to pick up so many meteor treasures near the Shield of Truth. It was not a coincidence, but it was inevitable. These meteor treasures did not fall there, but were dropped there. Because of the existence of the Shield of Truth, the entire fearsome ground had become a place with dense spirit chi. Many times it seemed like luck, but there were actually many unknown rules within it. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days had passed. At the mouth of the volcano, a black figure suddenly scuttled out with a fiery red glow, like a phoenix being reborn. Flames bloomed, and Lin Feng's eyes were burning. These 7 days had not been a waste of time. Not only had his injuries healed, but his soul power had also recovered a lot. Most importantly, after 7 days of adaptation and control, he could already fuse the fire of devouring and the fire of rebirth. Previously, he had made many mistakes. He did not immediately comprehend and control the power that erupted at the edge of death. When he had time to touch it later, the time had already passed. If he wanted to comprehend it again, he would have to spend several times or even dozens of times more effort than before. But this time it was different. Seizing the golden time, while his consciousness and senses were still clear, he completed the control of his main body's strongest attack. I can't act recklessly like last time. Actually, as long as I don't use all my strength to attack, I can divert a portion of my strength to use the Shield of Truth to block the power. At that time, I won't hurt the enemy at the expense of myself. Lin Feng thought to himself. This time, he had gained a lot from his comprehension. He had a new understanding of the initial fusion of the two flames. However, he still had not truly fused the two flames. Instead, he had used external forces to fuse them. He had fused them with the power of the star source and the power of the blood phoenix, so he would hurt himself. Because the power after the fusion of the two flames did not belong to the Phoenix constellation. Therefore, just like the magnetic explosion, he would hurt himself. If he truly fused them, even if the flames were close to him, they would not cause any harm to him. The road of fusion is still very long. However, at least this initial fusion is already quite powerful. Even if it is not as powerful as the true fusion, it is probably not far off. After all, it is already beyond the power of a peak Saint King. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He was already very satisfied with this powerful power. However, there were also many weaknesses. First, I can't use it in close combat. Second, I can't use it with my spear like provoking fire. Third, it is too slow. Lin Feng nodded. These three weaknesses were very clear. They were strong and weak. Moreover, this was not a truly perfect move, so there would naturally be shortcomings. However, there was no such thing as perfection in the world. It's about time. Lin Feng smiled slightly. There was no need to deliberately pursue perfection and strive for perfection. With this time, it was better to think about other ways to increase his strength, such as the Shield of Truth. Lin Feng's eyes flashed and fell on his left hand. At this moment, although he had merged with the Shield of Truth, he could control less than 1% of its power. There was still a lot of potential to be unearthed. There is no rush. Lin Feng thought lightly, and then turned on the communication compass. He dialed Jean Ji's number directly. However, the other end of the compass was still silent. 7 days had passed, and there was no change. Pursing his lips, he immediately ended the call. Lin Feng shook his head helplessly. In these 7 days, with the ominous grounds as the center point, the doppelganger searched round and round, but did not find Jean Ji. He even mobilized Wing, but still did not find anything. What should he do? Frowning slightly, Lin Feng paused for a moment. Right now, he could neither leave nor stay. Just as he was thinking, suddenly there was a sudden change. Beep! Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat as his expression changed drastically. This was not the sound of a communication device, nor was it the sound of a message or a contact. This was the only SOS button on the communication compass. Who was it? Who was in great danger? Lin Feng glanced over and instantly pressed the button with his right hand. His body trembled slightly. It was Shi Jixin. Whoosh! The interface of the communication compass instantly turned into a map. Their location was extremely clear. A blood-red dot flickered in the distance. It was not fixed in a fixed position, but was moving at an extremely fast speed. Shi Jixin was running for her life. Not good. Lin Feng's expression changed instantly. He clenched his teeth tightly. His body flashed and disappeared instantly. Misfortune is where good fortune lies. Misfortune lies where good fortune lies. This sentence was very suitable for Shi Jixin. The heavens were fair. You would lose as much as you gained. Shi Jixin's luck could be said to be heaven-defying. She had consecutively obtained meteor rare treasures and even fused with a red heaven rank treasure. Who would have thought that she would end up with an even more precious heaven rank orange rank Khanate treasure, only to attract a fatal disaster? She was exactly the same as Lin Feng. Treasures arouse the envy of others. Without fusing with this heaven rank orange rank Khanate treasure, Shi Jixin did not know that heaven rank Khanate treasures had spiritual awareness and could be sensed, especially her strength, which was far lower than other warriors. If it were Lin Feng, even if he had a heaven rank Khanate treasure, other warriors would not be able to sense it. In fact, most warriors, including saint-level existences, did not know this common sense. After all, heaven rank Khanate treasures were too rare. Especially in human territory, heaven rank Khanate treasures were equivalent to legends. They had never seen one before. Even if they sensed it, how would they know what it was? However, the unlucky thing was, this time, Shi had encountered a demon clan expert. The team leader, Qi Ming, was from a famous sect in the Heavenly Dog race. Regardless of whether it was experience or experience, he was top-notch. He still had this common sense. At this moment, the 5-demon team, led by Qi Ming, no, it should be the 4-demon team, was trying their best to capture Shi. They were flustered and exasperated. With the strength of the 5 demons, Qi Ming was even a Sage King. However, Shi had killed one of them and escaped. Quick, we must not let her escape. She is more than one heaven-rank Khanate treasure. With Qi Ming as the leader, the remaining 3 saint-level demon experts' eyes were red, and their killing intent was boiling. As long as they killed this saint-level human, they would be able to obtain 2 heaven-rank Khanate treasures. Moreover, there might be other earth-rank Khanate treasures. Looking at the heavily injured figure in front of them, the demon experts had already gone crazy. It was as if they had seen a human-shaped treasure. Kill. Chapter 1341. Move quickly. Lin Feng moved forward at full speed. Right now, he couldn't care less about wasting his strength. He had to rush there as fast as he could. He had met Shi when they were young and had established a deep friendship. Her doll-like appearance had been deeply imprinted in his mind. His relationship with her was better than Qian Huang and Jinji's. They had gone through the battle between the Greenfield Immortal Sect and the Demon Clan. Although there was no love between them, he had already treated her as his own sister. How could he allow anything to happen to her? Jixin, hang in there. Lin Feng's eyes were deep. His body was like a phantom as he sped forward. However, he was quite far away from Shi and couldn't reach her in a short time. No matter how fast he was, the size of the Sorcerer Realm was unimaginable. With his current speed, it would take him at least 2 hours. By that time, Shi would have died without a corpse. The red warning signal on the communication compass was definitely not ordinary. If she wasn't in great danger, why would Shi press the SOS button? Most importantly, other than himself, only Jinji and Qian Huang could see the signal. However, Jinji couldn't contact her. Only he and Qian Huang were left. He didn't know if Qian Huang had received it. What should he do? His heart was burning with anxiety. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. He could face his own danger calmly, but when faced with Shi danger, he felt his heart beat faster and he couldn't calm down. Breathe. Lin Feng slowed down and took a deep breath. His furrowed brows relaxed a little. He clenched his fists and his mind became clearer. His eyes lit up. Oasis. Although the Sorcerer Realm was huge, there was a teleportation formation. As long as he found an oasis, he could find the teleportation formation and teleport himself to the oasis closest to Shi. Lin Feng's heart sank, and his expression turned ugly. At this moment, 2 new problems appeared. Firstly, he wasn't familiar with the Sorcerer Realm. How would he know which oasis was the closest to Shi? Furthermore, which oasis was the closest to him right now? Wings! Lin Feng shouted. A red and green light flashed between his brows, and wings appeared. Needless to say, countless branches spread out with Zhangxian as the center. Hundreds of thousands of winged insects spread out in all directions, searching for oases. Perhaps his speed far exceeded wings, but when it came to finding an oasis in a large area, he was far from being as efficient as Wing. But was it really too late? Cold sweat dripped down from Lin Feng's forehead. His body trembled slightly as he looked at the blood-red signal light on the compass in his left hand. This feeling was very similar. Just like when his younger brother and sister were in danger that day, he had lost his sense of propriety. He had to be calm at this moment, but how many people could truly calm down? Suddenly, beep, 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 the rapid and loud voice sounded out, and Lin Feng was slightly stunned. As he gazed at the bright light on the compass, it was like a wisp of clear spring resounding in his heart, and it suddenly woke him up. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he pressed the communication button. Empress Lien. At that moment, the person who called him was none other than Qian Lian Huang. Lin Feng, there's an oasis 15 degrees east. Jixin's location is the closest to Oasis 1076. Hurry over. As soon as the voice fell, the communication compass immediately turned off. Clean and neat, the entire process did not even take more than 2 seconds. The voice was hurried, but every word was deeply imprinted. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and his heart completely calmed down. His body suddenly turned, and he instantly disappeared in that direction. A small team must have a martial artist who is absolutely calm in the face of an unexpected situation. Lin Feng could do this, but in terms of calmness, Lin Feng was inferior to Shan. Similarly, he could not compare to Qian Lian Huang. No one was perfect, and that was the nature. However, Lin Feng was the most reliable one in the team. When a team member encountered danger, the first person they would think of was Lin Feng. In the face of a life and death situation, Lin Feng was the most reliable one. Regardless of whether it was Shi Jixin or Qian Lian Huang, they only thought of Lin Feng at that moment. They trusted Lin Feng 100%. This was a sense of security. Whoosh! Lin Feng sped up. His speed was so fast that it broke through the sky. The surging astral source energy was like a fiery red phoenix speeding past. Wherever he passed, there would be a commotion. Many sorcerer tribes even sent out provocative signals. However, to Lin Feng, there was nothing more important than Shi Jixin. Every minute and second was precious. Even if there was a heavenly treasure in front of him, it would be the same. There were many things that could not be regained after losing them. After a long while, whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He could sense it very clearly. He sensed the aura in front of him, and thousands of auras entered his heart. They were all complicated and different. There were the ancient tribe, the human tribe, the sorcerer tribe, and many other neutral tribes. This was enough to prove that the oasis in front of him was one of the characteristics of the sorcerer tribe. Qian Lian Huang was right. Qi. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He did not reduce his speed. He sped through the air. The power of the Holy King, mixed with the thick flames, opened a path. He was like a phoenix flying past. Wherever he passed, everyone looked up in fear. No one dared to stop him. In the oasis, the Holy King warriors still had a lot of prestige. Teleportation array. Over there. Lin Feng's eyes shone coldly. The oasis was very big. Although he could not see the exact location of the teleportation array, he could sense it. Many unfamiliar auras suddenly appeared, and many auras suddenly disappeared. Only the location of the teleportation array had this ability. In less than 10 seconds, the front was clear at a glance. There were a total of 10 teleportation arrays lined up in a row. In front of each teleportation array, there were many lines. However, every oasis was exactly the same. It was very busy. At the first oasis, he had waited for a long time. But at that time, there was plenty of time, so it did not matter. But now, Shi Jixin was in more danger. One had to know that every time the teleportation array was used, there was a cooldown period of 1 minute. Of the 10 lines here, even the shortest line had no less than 10 warriors. How could he afford to wait? Whoosh! Lin Feng's gaze swept across. The white light of one of the teleportation arrays was gradually dimming. Clearly, the cooldown period was almost over. That's it. Lin Feng moved. Swoosh! His figure flashed, and Lin Feng disappeared like a bolt of lightning. In front of the teleportation array, a holy level Go Mang wizard tribe warrior transformed into his human form and was about to step forward. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat, and his expression changed. Smack! His shoulders seemed to be held in place by an iron hoop. The Go Mang wizard tribe warrior's eyes turned cold. He did not expect that someone would dare to use force in the oasis. His strong right arm shook, and green astral source energy bloomed. He turned his head and saw a pair of cold eyes, like a black hole. Bang! Bang! His heart beat faster. Give me the spot. Lin Feng's voice was cold. His eyes were burning, as if they could burn the sky. What did you say? The Gomang wizard tribe warrior was stunned, and he was furious, especially the young man in front of him, who was obviously the weakest human warrior. The powerhouses in the queue also looked over and whispered to each other. It was a rare sight to see in the oasis. This is your reward. Lin Feng did not say much. A black light flashed in his hand, and he threw it at the Gomang wizard tribe warrior. Hiss! Whoosh! There was a commotion. Everyone was stunned, including the Gomang wizard tribe warrior who was holding the black light. The strong and powerful aura was none other than an Earth-rank black class innate treasure. Such a generous offer was unheard of. Everyone's eyes widened, as if they were suffocating. They had never seen anyone use an Earth-rank black class innate treasure to exchange for a spot. And now it had really happened. Lin Feng did not stop. In just a few seconds, the white light of the teleportation portal in front of him disappeared. Without waiting for the Gomang wizard tribe warrior to answer, Lin Feng's figure flashed and entered the teleportation portal. His eyes sparkled as he skillfully operated it. In an instant, whoosh, the light shone and connected to Oasis 1076. Lin Feng clenched his left fist. His eyes flashed. Seeing the teleportation portal flash, the Gomang wizard tribe warrior who was holding the Earth-rank black class innate treasure finally woke up. His face was pale. He was happy that he had fallen from the sky, but he also felt embarrassed, especially when there were so many people watching. Kid, you. The Gomang wizard tribe warrior raised his head and said proudly. All of a sudden, Lin Feng turned around. His cold eyes carried a terrifying, murderous aura as flames filled the air. Bang! Extremely fierce flames condensed in his hands. The powerful Saint King level stellar source energy brought about a ferocious blood-red phoenix, shocking everyone in the teleportation portal. The Gomang wizard tribe warrior was stunned. He swallowed the words he wanted to say as if he was suffocating. He felt that if he dared to say anything more, the consequences would be unimaginable. There was complete silence. Even the other teleportation portals stopped working. The entire area was shrouded by Lin Feng's terrifying killing intent. None of the warriors dared to move. Whether it was the wizard tribe, the ancient tribe, or even the divine beasts and ferocious beasts in the Douling world, only strength was the true touchstone. It represented status and the weight of one's words. And power. Whoosh! The white light shone. Suppressing his strong, killing intent, Lin Feng turned into a beam of light, disappearing in a split second. Fast. Extremely fast. The moment he came out of the teleportation portal, Lin Feng's killing intent poured out uncontrollably. Where? A furious and worried voice sounded in his heart. Lin Feng looked at the compass in his left hand. The light spot that represented him was very close to Shiji Xin. It was almost overlapping. The position that Qian Lian Huang told him was accurate and clear. Tap! Tap! He pressed his right hand lightly and the map on the compass zoomed in. The overlap just now was because the ratio was too big. Now that the ratio was reduced, he soon saw Shiji Xin. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. It was not one, but two. Qian Lian Huang had arrived before him. However, right now, the two women were not moving. They were still. This meant that the two women were in the middle of a battle. Chapter 1342. It was an abyss of suffering. The two women were facing 4 demon clan experts, and they were in a perilous situation. Their injuries were not light, especially Shiji Xin. This was especially so for Shiji Xin. She was completely different from when she had first entered the sorcerer realm. Her plump breasts were exquisite and translucent. Her figure could be said to be perfect, but it was covered in wounds. Her injuries were shockingly serious. The Aries constellation star seal on her forehead lit up, but her beautiful face was pale white. Shiji Xin had used all her strength, and even she used a forbidden technique. Just like what she did in the green field of immortals, the use of the forbidden technique not only made her body grow instantly, reaching a perfect state, but also made her strength surpass her current level. It was not that she was weak, but that her opponents were too strong. The Demon Clan team, led by Qi Ming, was made up of elite experts, especially Qi Ming, who was the best of the best in the Celestial Dog Clan. How could he be an ordinary person if he could become the team leader? He severely injured Shi Jixin. If Qian Lianhuang had not arrived in time, Shi Jixin would have died. With less than 10% of her strength left, Shi Jixin had withstood the joint attack of 3 peak martial saints. Her strength was depleted, and her body was severely injured. It was only a matter of time before she lost. On the other side, Qi Ming went all out, and he had the upper hand against Qian Lianhuang. Perhaps Qian Lianhuang was a rare talent in the human clan, and she had broken through 70% to become a martial saint. Her potential was extraordinary. However, she was only a peak martial saint and not a martial saint. Her potential and strength were different. Moreover, Qi Ming's talent was not bad. The Celestial Dog Clan, one of the 5 royal clans of the Demon Clan, was not inferior to the Zhu Rong clan of the Sorcerer race. Moreover, the older, the wiser. Qi Ming was very experienced, and Qian Lianhuang might be able to compete with Qi Ming in her normal state, but Qian Lianhuang had already suffered heavy injuries before coming here. Some people were happy, while others were sad. Shi Jixin was extremely lucky, but Qian Lianhuang's luck seemed to have been used up in the Sparrow Prison, and she was restrained in the Sorcerer realm. She did not even get an Earth-class treasure, let alone a Heaven-class treasure. She had been empty-handed during this period of time. During a fight for a meteor-rare treasure, he was heavily injured in a chaotic battle with experts from 3 different forces. She'd just recovered a bit of her strength after recuperating, yet she'd been swept into a great battle. It could be said that one wave hadn't subsided yet another wave had arisen. However, as a member of the team, it was naturally impossible for her to stand by and do nothing. Right now, Thousand Love Empress injuries were even more severe than Shi Jixin's, especially with her old injuries and hidden injuries. Even if she didn't die after this battle, Thousand Love Empress was also guilty. However, she did not regret it. She would do whatever she had to do. In contrast to her calmness, her heart was also very firm. Even if she had to die to save Shi Jixin, she would have no regrets. Pung, pung. She blocked and retreated again and again, but her expression didn't change at all. Even if the pain was excruciating, even if she was facing the threat of death, it wouldn't shake her mind in the slightest, except, boom, rumble. Not far away, screams could be heard. An astonishing aura leaked out, bringing with it a dense cold light and sharp shadow. Shi Jixin, who was besieged by 3 experts from the demon race, was injured once again. The originally dazzling star armor had long been damaged beyond recognition, and the heaven-grade red Khanate treasure couldn't unleash its true power. After all, it had just fused. Not all treasures were like rare heavenly treasures, able to unleash tyrannical power as soon as they fused. Pung! The continuous attacks sent Shi Jixin into a bottomless abyss. Her every move was restricted, and her aura became weaker and weaker. However, Sister Qian, leave quickly. Shi Jixin's voice was short and hoarse, but it was followed by a hoarse cry of pain, like a kite with a broken string. Shi Jixin had no way to survive. Pung! Her petite body fell heavily behind. Her consciousness was almost blurred, and her pale face was filled with helplessness. There was even a hint of unwillingness in her eyes. She was unwilling. At this moment, Thousand Love Empress shouted. Blood seeped out of the corner of her mouth, and she had already bitten the tip of her tongue. In an instant, her eyes spun like a kaleidoscope. Not only her eyes, but her body also rapidly changed. She integrated the array formation into her eye technique and used her killing move again. Her soul, which was already injured, felt a heart-wrenching pain. However, Thousand Love Empress had no choice. Oh! Qi Ming's gaze turned cold. Flames appeared in front of him, and he retreated instead of advancing. He wasn't stupid. He knew that there was no benefit in fighting head-on. Perhaps his strength was enough to break the eye technique, but if he could finish off his prey unharmed, why should he take the risk? It would just take a little more time. In his opinion, the two prey in front of him were already turtles in a jar. Take your time. Clang, clang. Golden spears clashed. Thousand Love Empress's gaze was cold. She turned back and charged toward Shijishin without fear. One of the experts from the wolf race was careless and was instantly injured. The other two experts from the demon race didn't dare to take the risk and directly took Shijishin's life. They turned to attack Thousand Love Empress, but they were afraid that she would catch them. 3 against 1, the battle began again. In the distance, Qi Meng smiled coldly, like a hunter looking at his prey. He was determined to win. Right now, why not save him a bit of effort? Shijishin's doomed situation was solved by Thousand Love Empress once again. However, she, who was already in a precarious situation, was in an even more cruel situation. Especially with her severely injured body, she couldn't withstand the attacks of the 3 experts from the demon race. Her energy was exhausted, and her soul was on the verge of exhaustion. At this moment, Thousand Love Empress was fighting with her willpower. Kiki, Kiki. The 3 demon clan experts looked at Qian Lian Huang wickedly, as if they were toying with her. One from the wolf race, one from the snake race, and one from the fox race were all perverts. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. Qi Meng floated in the air, looking down as if he was watching a show. Claw shadows filled the sky, tearing apart Thousand Love Empress's defense. Her star armor was already broken, and more than half of her martial attire was gone. Bright red blood flowed out of her snow-white skin. More than half of her round chest was exposed, and the cloth around her waist couldn't cover her breasts. Her slender thighs were covered in bloody wounds. Thousand Love Empress's perfect figure was revealed to the fullest. However, she didn't feel shy at all. Her consciousness was gradually blurred, and Thousand Love Empress was fighting with her instincts. "I'm sorry, Sister Qian." Shijishin, who was half lying on the ground, cried. She was also covered in blood, but she didn't even have the strength to stand up. She didn't look much better than Thousand Love Empress. Her broken star armor was half naked, and her exquisite figure was half covered, making her even more alluring. However, Shijishin's heart was filled with guilt. If she could save Sister Qian, she was willing to pay any price. But the chance was getting slimmer and slimmer. Chi, chi, chi. One strike after another. Blood splattered everywhere, as if she was being dismembered. Thousand Love Empress was ultimately a human, not a god. No matter how strong her body was, or how strong her willpower was, she couldn't withstand the tide-like attacks. Boom! A heavy claw struck out. Bang! Thousand Love Empress was killed like a kite with a broken string. Her aura was close to nothingness. Thousand Love Empress's body landed in front of Shijishin. Her beautiful face was already pale, but she still trembled and tried to stand up. There was no consciousness in her eyes, and she was completely relying on her instincts. Shijishin's heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. She was in so much pain that she wanted to kill herself, but she didn't have the strength to do so. Jia Jia. He. The 3 demon experts didn't hide the lecherous look in their eyes. Their beastly desires were boiling. They only needed to end the 2 women's lives to satisfy their desires. To them, conquering powerful alien experts was not only exciting, but also a kind of glory. Whether it was physically or mentally, they would be completely satisfied. Qi Meng crossed his arms and didn't stop them. To him, this kind of thing was common and didn't matter at all. As long as he got the heaven-grade treasure, they could do whatever they wanted. He couldn't care less. Suddenly, thump, thump, thump. Qi Meng's heart beat wildly, and his expression changed drastically. What kind of feeling was this? It had been a long time. It had been too long. He hadn't felt this way for too long. Qi Meng opened his mouth slightly, and his face was filled with shock. His son's face appeared in his mind, and then his wife's face appeared. The beautiful memories of the past appeared in his mind, and his mind was in a mess. Xiong, Qi Ming murmured, and his eyes were a little blurred. Suddenly, a strange light shone. Qi Ming widened his eyes, and the shock on his face instantly turned into anger. He was extremely angry. Roar! Qi Ming roared furiously. He clenched his fists tightly, and blue veins popped out. Heavenly fire burned fiercely in the sky. The anger level flame made the three demon experts a little confused, but they didn't know what was going on. They looked at each other, and a cold light flashed in the eyes of the leader of the wolf clan. Suddenly, a terrifying cold light appeared and went straight for Thousand Love Empress, who was trembling and gradually standing up. Attack! Under normal circumstances, Thousand Love Emperor would be able to easily block such an attack. But now, except for her unyielding willpower, she had nothing else. The cold light in front of her was so sharp that it could send Thousand Love Empress from the mortal world to the Yellow Springs in an instant. However, boom! A shockingly hot light appeared. It suddenly appeared behind Thousand Love Empress and whistled past her ear. It was a fiery red sparrow, and its high-pitched cry was filled with the power of fire. It was as if a heavenly tribulation was descending. It was so fast that there was no way to dodge it. When the sharp claws of the Wolf Clan expert were less than a meter away from Thousand Love Empress's throat, it directly entered the Wolf Clan expert's brain. Bang! A shocking explosion occurred. The Wolf Clan expert's brain exploded, and blood splattered everywhere. The head of the Wolf Clan expert instantly turned into a bloody light. At this moment, the sharp claws were less than 10 centimeters away from Thousand Love Empress's throat. The wind blade had already broken through Thousand Love Empress's only defense, and drops of blood dripped down. Life was only 10 centimeters away from death, but these 10 centimeters were farther than the boundless sea. Not to mention 10 centimeters, even 1 centimeter, or even 1 millimeter was a luxury, because Lin Feng was here. Chapter 1343. Before he arrived, the attack arrived first. From afar, Lin Feng had already seen the dangerous situation in front of him. The vermilion bird attack was the fastest, most direct, and most effective attack. The Wolf Clan expert, who was caught off guard, thought that victory was in his hands. But in the end, he died without a burial place. The headless corpse stunned the Fox Clan expert, and the Snake Clan expert not far behind. Shijishin was also stunned. She had no idea what had happened, but she felt her heart beat faster. There was a familiar and warm feeling, and her cold skin felt warm. The attack was extremely terrifying. It was far more powerful than any attack she had ever seen. But she was not afraid. She did not feel threatened at all. In fact, it felt like déjà vu. This is. Shijishin's beautiful eyes widened, and her cherry lips parted slightly. At this moment, the Fox Clan and Snake Clan experts' eyes were cold. They attacked as fast as they could to kill Thousand Love Emperor and Shijishin. They were not stupid. In fact, the Fox Clan and Snake Clan were relatively smart. They knew that the enemy's reinforcements had arrived, and they were extremely powerful. No matter what, they had to kill the two severely injured humans first. Otherwise, there would be no end to their troubles. But they were one step too late. Lin Feng did not stop using the vermilion bird attack. He sped forward. Fires sparkled, and with a shocking aura, Lin Feng had arrived in an instant. The flames took the first attack from Thousand Love Emperor. The 80th layer of the Flame of Rebirth carried the power of the Blood Phoenix and was driven by the Holy King's stellar source energy. Boom! The Fox Clan expert's expression changed. His eyes were filled with shock. Let it go. Shijishin's eyes lit up. Her eyes were filled with tears of joy. The feeling of déjà vu was like a puzzle solved at this moment. It was clear. All the negative emotions in her heart disappeared. They were replaced by a strong sense of excitement. To Shijishin, as long as Lindigo was there was nothing that could not be solved. No one could hurt Sister Qian. Looking at the familiar black figure and feeling the warm power, Shijishin's eyes were wet again. What was different from before was that this time, they were tears of joy. However, a sinister snake head appeared in front of him, bringing with it a thick stench of blood. It attacked quickly and craftily, aiming straight for his throat. It was the expert from the snake clan. His attack appeared at the same time as that of the fox race expert. Their coordination was extremely good, and they both attacked one side at the same time. It was as if they wanted to make Lin Feng lose sight of the other side. Humans valued relationships the most. If Lin Feng wanted to save the two women at the same time, then it was very likely that he wouldn't have the time to spare, putting himself in danger. However, they miscalculated. The current Lin Feng was far stronger than they had imagined. White light flashed, and a huge shield of light with deep carvings appeared in front of Shijishin. It blocked the snake expert's attack and counterattacked in an instant. Whoosh! Strange lights and illusions appeared like the sky. It was a killing move to deal with demons with weak souls. Shield of Truth. That was the power of a heavenly treasure. The counterattack of the illusions caught the snake expert off guard. Just as his attack failed and he was feeling weak, he suddenly saw layers of illusions in front of him, as if ghosts were haunting him. The snake expert's expression changed greatly. At this moment, the flame of rebirth that had just been attacked instantly turned the tables. The flame of devouring appeared again, and the control of power condensed into the flame of provocation, like an extreme vortex. Using speed to counterattack, appearing with power. Lin Feng's eyes lit up with a mysterious color. The illusions, mixed with the flame of provocation, blasted directly at the fox race expert. There were no tricks. It was the most direct, face-to-face attack. The power of the flame of provocation was driven by the profound blood phoenix, the Tao of the constellation, and the condensed power of the star's source. With absolute tyrannical power, it completely suppressed the strength of the fox race expert. The face-to-face attack was the most direct flame engulfing. Boom! In the blink of an eye, it turned into nothingness. The flame of devouring burned everything. The death of the fox race expert was more straightforward and simple than that of the wolf race expert. In less than a second, his soul was scattered, and there was not even a scream or roar. His corpse was turned into ashes. A second ago, he was still arrogant, but the next second, he had become a lonely ghost. After Shijishin, another figure of Lin Feng appeared, and the spear intent filled the sky. The illusions overlapped, bringing a touch of purple-golden light. Clouds rise. Lin Feng's eyes were cold, and the purple crystal spear in his hand appeared like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Chi! Without a shadow, a white cloud appeared out of thin air, floating lightly. The two figures of Lin Feng overlapped at this moment, and the sharp spear intent was unstoppable. Like the clouds rising and the fog breaking, one spear was another spear, simple and direct. The purple crystal spear directly pierced through the chest of the snake race expert, and the star source energy exploded. Pung! The place of death. In a short moment, the three demon race experts that had caused Shijishin and Thousand Love Empress to be in a bitter battle were all killed. The two figures of Lin Feng overlapped, as if they had merged into one. Lin Feng's eyes were burning, and his aura was majestic. He stood firmly, protecting the two women behind him. There was no need for any words, and his actions showed everything. As long as he was here, no one could hurt them, unless, over his own corpse, he had come. For Shijishin, everything before her eyes was like a dream. A weak smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Looking at the black figure, her heart was filled with warmth. He was like a big brother, protecting her. This was not the first time she felt this way. She had an inexplicable dependence on Lin Feng and a strong sense of security. When she was being chased, the first person she thought of was Linda Ge. She believed that Linda Ge would definitely make it. Now, her wish had come true. However, her beautiful eyes changed slightly, and when she saw her current appearance, Shijishin's delicate face instantly turned red. Her star armor was completely shattered, and there was not much left of her clothes. She was like a nude, and everything that should and should not be seen was exposed. However, she did not have the strength to cover it all. Her injuries were quite serious. Even a slight movement would cause her body to fall apart, like a broken porcelain. With a thought in her mind, suddenly, whoosh, a black cloak fell from the sky and covered her delicate and exquisite body. At the same time, the other black cloak also covered Qian Lian Huang's perfect figure. Shi Jixin snorted softly as the boiling heat on her face dissipated slightly. She looked at the black figure in front of her and did not even look back once. Shi Jixin's heart was filled with gratitude and warmth. Her big brother Lin was not only an indomitable hero, he was also a man of honor. Although there was still the strongest demon in front of her, Shi Jixin did not think that it was a big deal. She believed that with Lin Deji's strength, no one could defeat him. No matter who the opponent was, Lin Dege would definitely win. She firmly believed. The sky had already turned red. One side of the sky was burning with heavenly fire, and the other side was burning with ferocious flames. Lin Feng and Qi Ming looked at the middle-aged man in front of them. Although they had never met before, there was an indescribable feeling in his heart. Light flashed in his eyes as he felt the dense power of fire. That human figure had a taste that moved his soul. Was it an illusion? No. A voice in his heart told him that it was not an illusion. He must have seen this demon somewhere before. Or perhaps, does it feel familiar? A hoarse and deep voice sounded. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly, and he looked not far away. The middle-aged man looked a little ferocious, and the heavenly fire was surging with the aura of a sage king. It was not inferior to his own devouring fire. The Heavenly Dog Clan, Lin Feng said slowly, his eyes sparkling. It was normal for a saint-level demon to be proficient in a human language. As long as they lived long enough, it was not difficult for them to be proficient in a few languages. For example, Shun was proficient in the language of the Magi and demons. He even knew a little about the language of the mutated beasts. He could not tell the identity of the middle-aged man from his aura. He could only know that he was a fire element demon. However, there was only one demon who possessed the heavenly fire. It was the Heavenly Dog Clan, one of the 4 royal clans of the demon race. They had a deep relationship with him. The voice had a thick beast, nasal sound. It was filled with hatred and resentment. Qi Meng looked at Lin Feng, and his claws were clenched. His eyes were fierce, and he roared in a low voice. His body expanded, and his original human form turned into a beast form. He did not intend to preserve his strength, and his fur curled up with a fiery red glow. His demon eyes were extremely terrifying. Shi Jixin, who was behind him, felt a chill. However, when her beautiful eyes glanced at Lin Feng's back, the coldness disappeared in an instant. Bang! 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 Lin Feng's eyes changed, and the feeling of his soul became clearer. It was as if there was a power in the depths of his soul that was awakened. Looking at the Heavenly Dog Clan in front of him that was getting bigger and bigger, scenes of the past suddenly appeared in his mind. Little Heavenly Dog. The kingdom of Meru was still called Tianwu Continent at that time. At that time, the beast ride had already begun. At that time, he was still an ignorant young martial artist. Memories flashed through his mind one by one. He thought of his father and mother, his younger brother and sister, Ziyao, and even more so, Duo. In an instant, Lin Feng's pupils dilated, and he looked forward. At this moment, he finally understood where the feeling of the soul contract came from. You are. Lin Feng was stunned, and his eyes flashed. Roar. A furious roar. Heavenly fire flew, and the entire sky seemed to be burning. In the void, the fiery red figure was the true body of the Heavenly Dog Clan, but it was much bigger than the little heavenly dog that caused havoc in Tianwu Continent. It was much stronger, and the aura of a Saint King was enough to destroy heaven and earth. He was the true top existence of the Douling world, one of the 5 royal clans of the demon race. The hatred of killing my son, the hatred of killing my wife. Human, I will tear you into pieces to avenge my wife and son. The angry roar caused the fiery red aura to explode. Qi Ming's hysterical anger, along with the heavenly fire, attacked like a meteorite falling from the sky. A great battle had begun. Chapter 1344. With Qi Ming's short words, everything was clear. The hatred of killing his son and wife, other than the little heavenly dog in Tianwu continent, there was no other possibility. The reason his soul was moved was because he had once devoured the little celestial dog's soul. Even though his soul was now much stronger than before, he had still fused with it before. Therefore, it was normal for his bloodline to sense it. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Since he had devoured the little heavenly dog, he was destined to encounter such retribution. But would the current him even care about that? Lin Feng's hand flashed with fire, his eyes bright. The 80th level of devouring fire appeared, supported by the holy king-level star source energy. Lin Feng's fighting spirit exploded instantly. The blood-red light condensed outside his body, and the power of the mystery blood phoenix was released at will. The power of the devouring fire increased, and in an instant, it exploded with absolute power. The light of the flame surpassed Qi Ming's heavenly fire. The heavenly fire was indeed very strong. If the devouring fire was described as a top-level flame, then the heavenly fire was the top-level flame. Even if it collided with the devouring fire, there should not be much of a difference. But the devouring fire's characteristic was too abnormal. At the same level, it could devour all flames. At the same level, with the same energy, the devouring fire was stronger than the heavenly fire. Especially now that Lin Feng was not only strong in flames, but also in terms of star source energy, control of flames, and even the use of mystery blood, he was better than Qi Ming. Such a battle was destined to be a competition of strength with great disparity. Even if Qi Ming's strength had increased tremendously and was thousands of times stronger than Qi Yin, the current Lin Feng, he was no longer the warrior who was trampled by the newborn little heavenly dog. Go! Lin Feng's expression was calm, and the flames were blazing. With his strength, he was 100% confident in facing an expert of the same level. Whether he was from the 5 royal tribes of the Demon Clan, the 4 royal tribes, or the strongest tribe of the Wizard tribe, the current him already had true control of strength. He was comparable to a high-level Holy King level, or even a peak existence. The devouring fire bloomed wildly, and in an instant, it had the absolute advantage. Whoosh! The two flames were not very different in terms of strength. The devouring fire perfectly countered the heavenly fire, as if it was its natural enemy. Qi Ming's expression changed instantly. His heartbeat quickened as he found it hard to believe. He made breakthroughs one after another and was even personally taken in as a disciple by the Demon King. He was even appointed as the leader of the vanguard. He was extremely satisfied and proud of himself all this time. Ever since his breakthrough, he had never tasted defeat. Facing this irreconcilable enemy before him, Qi Ming didn't even spare him a glance. He was just a mere human, but impossible. Impossible. How can he be so strong? Qi Ming's face was pale, and he was in a daze. With one strike, the outcome was clear. The flames in front of him grew denser and denser, while his strength was slowly being nibbled away. Qi Ming was at a loss for what to do at this moment, as he felt an extreme threat. It wasn't that he lacked battle experience, but that it was completely out of his expectations, causing his heart to tremble. Damn it! Even though he was extremely unwilling to admit Lin Feng's strength, Qi Ming understood the current situation. The human in front of him was extremely dangerous. Boom! Flames appeared once again. Qi Ming dodged and dodged, and in the blink of an eye, his aura changed. Hua! A black light flashed. It was a huge net-shaped treasure with a demonic color. Qi Ming reacted extremely quickly. A bright light flashed in his hand. Just as he was about to attack, he suddenly froze. Lin Feng in front of him disappeared like a gust of wind, inexplicably disappearing. Qi Ming's expression changed greatly. Suddenly, Qi, The fireball rumbled, and the flames in the distance were multicolored. The dense light, accompanied by the devouring flames, fell from the sky like a meteor. Ha! Chi Meng dodged and blocked. His expression was aghast, as he was completely caught off guard. He was defeated in one move, and every move was defeated. He was at a disadvantage. The black light in his hand flashed fiercely, and the net-shaped treasure shot out. Chi Meng clenched his teeth, and his eyes were filled with coldness. This black earth-class treasure was definitely not ordinary. Countless experts were deceived by this net-shaped treasure, thinking that it was a control-type innate treasure. But in fact, this was an illusion-type treasure. As expected, a bright light flashed in Chi Meng's eyes. Seeing that Lin Feng had completely underestimated his attack, he was overjoyed. As long as Lin Feng fell for his trap, it would be a great opportunity for him to counterattack. Chi Meng took out a defensive treasure while blocking Lin Feng's fireball attack. As the black net covered Chi Meng's eyes, killing intent gradually appeared. Hua! A white light flashed, and a light shield instantly appeared in front of Lin Feng. I've been deceived. Human die. Chi Meng's eyes shone brightly. His body changed rapidly, and he changed from retreating to advancing. His aura surged. He had absolute confidence. A defense-type treasure? It could block physical attacks, but how could it block mental attacks? A moment of carelessness would be his opportunity. However, boom, 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 the blazing fireballs appeared again. They were more concentrated than before, and their power was even more terrifying. Chi Meng's expression changed greatly. He dodged by a hair's breadth, and his entire body was in a passive state. His ghost demon net seemed to have suddenly lost its connection. He glanced at the light shield from the corner of his eye, and it seemed to have completely subdued his treasure. Chi Meng was stunned. Before he could understand what was happening, the flames in front of him didn't allow him to think. The closer he got to Lin Feng, the smaller his range of dodging, and the more concentrated the fireballs became. At this moment, he had undoubtedly dug a hole and jumped into it. One word, miserable. The battle continued to heat up. The battle between Lin Feng and Chi Meng was one-sided. Chi Meng faced Lin Feng like a child facing an adult. He was restrained in every way, and he couldn't even touch the corner of Lin Feng's clothes. Chi Meng was panting, and his body was covered in wounds. Even if he transformed into his true form, it was useless. His huge body was completely a burden. Shi Jixin was stunned by what she saw. Although she was very confident in Lin Feng, she didn't expect the battle to be like this. One had to know that the powerhouse of the Celestial Dog Clan had beaten her and Sister Qian very badly just now, and he had held back. But now, he was like a stray dog, completely losing his mind and fighting spirit. He didn't look like one of the 4 royal clans of the Demon Clan, or a sage king-level powerhouse. However, it wasn't that he was weak. It was that Lin Feng was too strong. Lindigo is really powerful. Shi Jixin widened her eyes, looking at the battle with such a great disparity in strength. She was deeply shocked. At this moment, her embarrassment, pain, and all other feelings had long disappeared. There was only this battle in front of her, which wasn't very satisfying, but it was like torture. Lin Feng had the advantage. However, the battle had been going on for half an hour, but there was still no winner. It was still going on. Lin Feng didn't seem to be in a hurry to end the battle. Why didn't Linda Gu kill him? Shi Jixin pondered, extremely puzzled. In her opinion, with Linda Ji's strength, as long as he wanted to, he could quickly end the battle and kill the powerhouse of the Celestial Dog Clan. However, he had been fighting while floating. It was indeed the fighting style of a Celestial Spirit Master, but not Linda Ji's. Others might not know, but she knew that Linda Ji's close combat strength was far stronger than his long-range attack. The current situation seemed to be torture. Shi Jixin's eyes lit up. Yes, that must be it. Linda Gu must want to avenge me and Sister Qian, so he deliberately didn't kill him. Instead, he tortured him bit by bit, making this despicable Celestial Dog Clan member suffer a fate worse than death. Nodding slowly, Sure, Jixin finally figured out. Was that really the case? Lin Feng was probably the only one who knew. At least, Qi Ming didn't know. Not to mention being in the situation, even if he was outside, he might not be able to see what Lin Feng was planning. After all, guerrilla warfare was the fighting style of a celestial spirit master. Lin Feng's fighting style could not only preserve his strength to the greatest extent, but also prevent injuries. No celestial spirit master would be willing to let a celestial martial artist get close to them, especially the Celestial Dog Clan, one of the 4 royal clans of the Demon Clan. Their talent was astonishing, and they were not much inferior to the Witch Clan. Their bodies were quite strong. Time passed bit by bit. Qi Ming's injuries slowly worsened. No matter how strong his body was, he couldn't withstand such exhaustion. Burn marks could be seen all over his body. His broken skin was corroded by the devouring fire, and more than half of his blood had already been lost. Roar! Roar! Hiss! Angry roars and sorrowful cries. Qi Ming was completely hysterical. Right now, he was like a pitiful worm that had been completely conquered by a human. Facing this human with irreconcilable hatred, he used all his strength, but it was difficult for him to even get close to him, let alone hurt Lin Feng. As for the flame's long-range attack, it was completely restrained. He couldn't even use half of his strength as a celestial martial artist. At this moment, he was seriously injured. In less than half an incense stick's worth of time, he would be tortured to death. Escape, he couldn't escape. Kill, he couldn't kill. Qi Ming's eyes were red. He was so angry that he had already gone mad. Whoosh! Light flashed, but Lin Feng's expression was calm. Looking at the Celestial Dog Clan's expert in front of him, he couldn't be clearer. He was already forced into a desperate situation. There was no other choice. All that was left was the last desperate attack. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The earth seemed to be shaking, and the whole space seemed to be trembling. The scene of flesh and blood flying everywhere completely exploded around Qi Ming. Using up the last of his strength, Qi Ming roared to the sky. Facing Lin Feng's pressure again and again, he was already mad with anger. If he didn't want to die and wanted revenge, then there was only one last way. Roar! A wild roar shook the space. That was the most instinctive power of beasts, the greatest trump card of the Celestial Canine Clan. Heavenly Dog swallows the sun. Qi Ming's final eruption caused a crazy suction force to appear. It was like a huge black hole enveloping the entire space, violent and terrifying. At this moment, there was no aura that could stop it. This was the true signature of the Celestial Canine Clan, known as one of the 4 royal clans of the monster race. It was where the talent lay. Sincere blessings. Thank you for supporting Xiao Xiao all the way. Chapter 1345. Heavenly Dog swallows the sun. Lin Feng naturally understood the fatal move of the celestial dog race. He had personally experienced it and even used it before. When a holy, king-level celestial dog used it, it felt completely different from when a small celestial dog used it. It was like a proficiency and control of spear techniques. The Heavenly Dog swallows the sun that Qi Ming used had a stronger whirlpool and a more terrifying suction force. Especially its control, it was rather outstanding. It could completely control the main target of the Heavenly Dog swallows the sun. It was directed at Lin Feng. Strictly speaking, the Heavenly Dog swallows the sun's attack power was not outstanding, because its real attack was to suck the target into its own body, which was the independent flame space with the ultimate heavenly fire. The strength of the attack depended on the strength of the heavenly fire in the independent flame space, and not the mystery of the Heavenly Dog swallows the sun. This was a kind of talent. Wah! The crazy suction force was directed at Lin Feng. Qi Ming had already thrown caution to the wind. Although he clearly knew that Lin Feng was a celestial spirit master and his soul power was definitely stronger than his, at this moment he was on the verge of death and had no other choice. He had to fight. Hiss, hiss. The suction force was astonishing. With a strong spatial energy aura, it completely sealed off Lin Feng's escape route. To escape from the heavenly dog swallows the sun was harder than ascending to the heavens, especially when Qi Ming's suction force was more than 90% directed at Lin Feng. In fact, Lin Feng did not even think of dodging, because this was his real goal. Swish! His eyes lit up. Lin Feng's mouth curved into a faint smile. The shield of truth on his left hand disappeared, as if it was sleeping on his wrist. The whirlpool's power rose, and with lightning speed, it wrapped around him in an instant. His heart moved, and his mind flashed back to the battle in the sky martial continent, when he was also swallowed by the small celestial dog. At that time, facing the small celestial dog's attack, he did not have the power to resist at all, and could only perish together. He used the soul-devouring technique and risked his life. And now, his eyes lit up, bringing with it a rich flame light. In his own state, his top-notch eyes lit up. The light was scorching hot, and a flaming vermilion bird roared towards the sky. His soul power poured out like a tide, completely converging. Zheng Yang's bright eyes flickered. Even though he was in a land of chaos, he still maintained a clear perception. Vermilion bird attack! Lin Feng shouted. The fiery red sparrow flew out. It passed through the heavenly flames and headed straight for the location of Qi Ming's soul. The suction force was extremely terrifying. Everything in the surroundings seemed to be sucked into that space. Even if more than 90% of Qi Ming's suction force was aimed at Lin Feng, even if the remaining 10%, or even 10%, was not to be underestimated. Because Qi Ming was a saint king, his power system was far from what a saint could compare to. Shi Jixin's complexion changed greatly. She was in a trance, and her face was deathly pale. He could not see anything else at all. His body, which was already extremely weak, was about to be torn to pieces by this violent suction force. But in an instant, a black figure appeared in front of him. Even though his consciousness was blurred and his vision was completely limited, he could feel that familiar aura fluctuation. Shi Jixin's heart instantly calmed down. Lin Feng, 7-star sky. Lin Feng shouted softly. The 7 ultimate heavenly star bead appeared in his hand. Not only did it protect Shi Jixin, it also protected Thousand Love Emperor. The black light carried the strange power of the formation and instilled his own star source power. Perhaps it was impossible to completely resist the Saint King level heavenly dog swallowing the sun, but it was easy to stall for some time without any difficulty. With just a little bit of time, the heavenly dog swallowing the sun, it would naturally collapse. Pump! A violent explosion occurred. Qi Ming's huge body was using the heavenly dog swallowing the sun, but it exploded instantly as if it had swallowed a bomb. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. The scene was incomparably bloody. Fortunately, Qi Ming's power had already been mostly used. The remaining power was used on the heavenly dog swallowing the sun. Although the explosive power was still there, it was not enough to break through the defense. The leakage of power was completely blocked by the 7 ultimate heavenly star bead. It rippled like waves. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. Behind him, peace was finally restored. Shi Jixin looked at Lin Feng's back in a daze. She did not know what had just happened. Her beautiful eyes looked forward and heard an explosion. At this moment, there was no trace of the Heavenly Dog clan's expert. The surroundings were silent. Other than the pungent smell of blood, there was nothing else in sight. It was as if everything had turned into nothingness in this explosion. It's over. The black light in Lin Feng's hand flashed. He looked back at Shi Jixin and smiled lightly. The battle was completely over. Heavenly fire space. Bang! Bang! The flames were blazing, and the energy aura was incomparably strong. Lin Feng was in the middle of it. His eyes flashed brightly, and the flames of rebirth outside his body formed a natural defense. The surrounding flames were like ferocious, venomous snakes, sticking out their sinister tongues as if they wanted to devour Lin Feng. However, the flames could not gain any advantage over him. Even if they consumed the flames of rebirth, the flames of rebirth would replenish them in an instant. It was endless. As expected, Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile. Everything was within his expectations. Back when he was devoured by the little heavenly dog and entered its body, it was this flame world. He could also use the heavenly dog devouring the sun. When he absorbed it into his body, he would also enter the flame world, which was where the flames of rebirth gathered. It was not endless, but the flame world was big enough. There was a considerable amount of flames of rebirth, and its recovery ability was even more astonishing. Therefore, it felt like the flames of rebirth were endless. The flame world was the same. However, without a soul, it was just a corpse, a huge corpse. The devouring flames rose in his hands. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. The flames in his hands exploded and directly devoured the heavenly fire of the holy king level. He felt extremely comfortable as the energy entered his body. Lin Feng revealed a faint smile. At this moment, the devouring flames in his hands were not consumed. Instead, they became even more violent and excited as if they had a consciousness. Devour. Endless devouring. Here, there was no power that could stop him. Back when he devoured the little heavenly dog's small body, his devouring flames had increased tremendously because there was a considerable amount of flames. Now, this flame world with rich heavenly fire and strong holy king level aura, how much could it increase his strength? It was unimaginable. My devouring flames have entered the 80th level and are also at the holy king level. It is just right to devour the heavenly fire. Their strength levels are exactly the same, but my devouring flames are of a higher level. In addition, using flames to devour flames is not only the fastest, but also the most efficient. I believe that in a short period of time, my strength will increase tremendously. Eyes shining, Lin Feng was full of confidence. This was his real plan. Otherwise, with the strength of the heavenly dog race, he would have taken his life within 3 moves. How could he have let him live for so long? His main body had entered seclusion. Only his clone was left. However, Lin Feng did not care at all. His clone's strength had increased greatly in the process of obtaining the Shield of Truth. If his main body had not broken through to the Holy King level, his strength would not be comparable to his clone's. Just his mastery of the spear technique, Cloud, Rising, had allowed him to be comparable to a Holy King. As for the comprehension of the mystery Sparrow Kill, although he did not trigger the Tao of Constellation and break through to the Holy King level. However, he had already made great progress, especially the Mystery Blood Phoenix. To a certain extent, it was somewhat similar to the Mystery Sparrow Kill. He could completely learn from it. He believed that in a short period of time, his clone would definitely be able to comprehend the Tao of Constellation and break through to the Holy King level. With a stronger body, aptitude, and strength in his main body, if his clone broke through, its strength was unpredictable. Whoosh! Whoosh! Red and green light flashed. Wing's huge body was like a shade tree. His body swayed with the wind, and the branches danced. Under the shade of Wing's tree, Lin Feng was treating the 2 girls. The scene was quite charming, although the 2 women were wearing black cloaks at this moment. How could the cloaks cover their exquisite figures? Although they were tightly covered, it reflected the curves of their bodies. The fragrance of the young girls was intoxicating, especially when he was treating Shijin. The latter's face was red to the tips of her ears. It was not the wine that made him drunk, but he was drunk. The charming atmosphere made the treatment become strange. Phew! Lin Feng let out a light breath. His hands left Shijin's back, and he secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Although he treated her as his sister, they were not blood-related. During the entire treatment process, although his eyes were closed, he could feel Shijin's body trembling slightly. Compared to treating Qian Lian Huang, it was more awkward. After all, Qian Lian Huang was unconscious when he was treating her. Fortunately, it was finally over. Lin Feng stood up and said softly, "Now we just need to wait for the star fruit's effect to spread and be absorbed by the body. Zixin, you rest for a while. I'll take a look around." After he finished speaking, Lin Feng did not even glance at Shi Jixin as his body flashed and left. Lin Feng's abrupt departure startled Shi Jixin slightly. She then understood what had happened and chuckled. Suddenly, she did not seem to be so shy. 3 days later, Qian Lian Huang slowly woke up. Although she was more mature than Shi Jixin, she was still a girl and not a woman. Especially when Lin Feng's cloak covered her graceful body, Qian Lian Huang's face flushed red. In this aspect, the two girls were equally matched. However, the awkwardness did not last long. After all, although they were exposed, the actual situation was not bad. The most important thing was that they had survived the disaster together. No one had encountered any mishaps. This was more important than anything else. Although they were injured, as long as the injuries were not fatal, they could slowly recover. Even the heavily injured Qian Lian Huang recovered part of her strength after 7 days. As for Shi Jixin, who was slightly less injured, she was already able to fight. The fight for the heavenly treasure and the meteor unique treasure had officially come to an end. Let's go. Let's go to Yin Imperial City. Lin Feng smiled. The two girls replied. Chapter 1346. Their destination was Yin Imperial City. This was Lin Feng's first destination after entering the Sorcerer Tribe realm. That was because Yin Imperial City was the only place in the Sorcerer Tribe realm where humans could live. In other words, there should be the most number of human martial artists there. Bai Mingyang's divination previously showed that Zi Yao was in the Sorcerer Tribe realm. Therefore, the probability of her being in Yin Imperial City was naturally the highest. There are 3 Imperial cities in the Sorcerer Tribe realm. Yin Imperial City is one of them. It is also the most complicated one because its ruler is not a powerful sorcerer. Qian Lian Huang's beautiful eyes shone as she spoke softly. The 3 of them sat on a fiery red dragon with ferocious scales. They were moving slowly forward. Hong Ling, a sage, had become a mount. This was something unimaginable in the demon race. How could he be controlled by a human? However, Hong Ling was not a real demon. He was born in the Thousand Snake Cave. After he hatched, he was brought up by Lin Feng. He was like a family member. Normally, he would not need Hong Ling. However, Qian Lian Huang had not recovered from her injuries, and Shi Jixin was not in a good state either. Having a mount would save them a lot of energy. Most importantly, if the 2 of them were to rush, they would not be able to catch up with Hong Ling. Oh, Shi Jixin was surprised. She asked curiously, the Sorcerer Tribe allows other races to govern? Lin Feng was also moved. It was indeed unbelievable. The Sorcerer Tribe realm was the core of the Sorcerer Tribe, just like the 7 ancient regions. How could other races be allowed to take root here and even have real power? Even the human clan, which was the weakest of the 3 major clans, prohibited the Sorcerer clan and the ancient clan from entering the 9 great regions. Even though they could not stop the martial saints from entering the 9 great regions secretly, at least on the surface, the 9 great regions were truly controlled by the human clan. However, what was going on with Yin Imperial City? I'm not sure about the details. That's what I heard from my father, Qian Lian Huang said softly. I heard you mention that Qian Shan often goes in and out of Yin Imperial City. Has he never seen the ruler? Lin Feng asked. Qian Lian Huang shook her head. Not only father, but many Saint Kings have never seen the ruler of Imperial Yin City. Pausing for a moment, Qian Lian Huang's beautiful eyes gazed into the distance. I heard from father that he rarely shows himself. It's rare for him to show himself even once in 100 years. Even if he does show up, he's not someone a nobody like him can see. Nobody? Lin Feng smiled. Indeed, perhaps in the human world, Senior Qian Shan was both a saint-level expert and a top-notch alchemist, so his status was extremely high. However, in the sorcerer realm, compared to so many powerful people, he was indeed just a small figure. Even he himself felt the same way. Wow, I really want to meet him. Shi Jixin pursed her lips, her curiosity piqued. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Shi Jixin was definitely not the only one who wanted to see him. To be able to control one of the 3 imperial cities of the sorcerer tribe and not be a powerful warrior of the sorcerer tribe, his identity was a mystery. His strength must be extraordinary. I want to see him too, Qian Lian Huang said, her beautiful eyes sparkling. But even father and mother can't see him. His identity must be very noble. Plus, this is the sorcerer realm, and we are such lowly humans. The chances of meeting him are close to 0. Maybe he's a human too? Shi Jixin tilted her head. Human? Lin Feng and Shi Jixin couldn't help but laugh. They had thought about it before, but thinking about it carefully, it was a reality. The sorcerer tribe looked down on humans and saw them as slaves. How could they let a human be the ruler of their own city? It was impossible. Divine beast or ferocious beast, the possibility is higher. Lin Feng said softly. I think so too. Qian Lian Huang nodded. Only such a neutral tribe would the sorcerer tribe be at ease. Maybe he's using the power to win over the various divine beasts and ferocious beasts of the Douling world. Oh, is that so? Shi Jixin's head drooped, a little disappointed. When the two of them saw her cute expression, they couldn't help but smile, but they could understand Shi Jixin's feelings. Lin Feng looked into the distance, his heart moved. Humans have been suppressed for too long, and have been living at the bottom of the Douling world. Even humans themselves felt inferior. Even a small fry had his own dreams. How could humans not want to establish their might and be the ruler of the Douling world? But was it possible? Whether one could be the ruler of the world depended on one's strength. The sorcerer tribe and the demon tribe could become the 2 overlords of the Douling world, not because of how outstanding or powerful their bloodlines were, but because they were strong enough. In terms of bloodline and aptitude, many divine beasts and ferocious beasts were the true kings of the Douling world. However, right now, they were just neutral races. It wasn't that they didn't want to, but the strength of an individual didn't mean that the race was strong. Born from the heavens, divine beasts and ferocious beasts didn't have the ability to reproduce, so they would never be able to rule the Douling world. There wouldn't be too many of them, and of course, they wouldn't be exterminated. The only ones who could decide the ownership of the Douling world were the sorcerer tribe and the demon tribe. A great war was about to break out. Lin Feng and the other 2 set off for Yin Imperial City. Under the leadership of Sorcerer King Jiang, the great army of the sorcerer tribe galloped towards the demon tribe. There was no concealment, and they couldn't hide their tracks. How could they hide with so many troops? Just like how the vanguard of the demon tribe split into 2, one of them charged toward the territory of the sorcerer tribe brazenly. Otherwise, how could the sorcerer king know the whereabouts of the demon tribe so clearly? The defending side had to have a slight advantage. After all, one side was in the light, while the other was in the dark. It was an active and passive relationship. The tables had turned. At the beginning of the war, the demon tribe had launched an attack. Now, they were forced to defend. Half of the vanguard had been completely annihilated, and even one of the 12 demon stars had been killed. The losses were huge, and their morale was low. Needless to say, the great defeat of the demon tribe commander had caused the demon tribe to be dispirited and powerless. Morale was a very important existence. When doing the same thing, the results could be worlds apart with confidence and without. The demon tribe's power was completely suppressed by the sorcerer tribe, and there were all kinds of rumors about internal strife. The other half of the vanguard stopped in a wasteland surrounded by mountains, as if they had stopped and did not want to escape. They wanted to fight to the death with the sorcerer tribe. Even if they were completely annihilated, they did not want to be cowards. But was that really the case? No one knew. The sorcerer tribe did not know, the ancient tribe did not know, and it was even more impossible for the human tribe to know. As for the real situation and what the demon tribe was planning, they would only know when the sorcerer tribe really launched an attack. The Tao of war was not about guessing or estimating. Instead, it was about fighting face to face. Only then would they know who was stronger and who was weaker and what the outcome would be. Did you find anything? Sorcerer King Jiang placed his hands behind his back. His golden robe was shining brightly, and he had an imposing aura. His existence was the backbone of the sorcerer tribe, the true source of morale. We couldn't find anything, big brother. Hutu frowned slightly with a solemn expression. However, since the demon tribe chose this place as their battlefield, it should at least be beneficial to them in terms of geography. However, this place is surrounded by mountains. I can't see any geographical advantage. Sorcerer King Di Jiang said, "Then what kind of geographical advantage do you think is beneficial to the demon tribe and disadvantageous to the sorcerer tribe?" Well, Hutu hesitated for a moment, but she could not answer. At the side, Xianming shrugged his head and scratched his head. He thought hard, but he could not figure it out. In a one-on-one battle, geographical advantage is very important. Sorcerer King Jiang looked into the distance and said, "However, in a large-scale war, the real thing is still the overall strength. The place where the demon tribe is now surrounded by mountains. It's a very balanced terrain for the sorcerer tribe, but for the ancient tribe, it's not." Yes, Huta clapped her hands and reacted, "I almost forgot about the ancient tribe." Xianming widened his eyes, not understanding. "Actually, the demon tribe is very similar to us." Sorcerer King Jiang said indifferently, "We don't lack any close combat type. The sky martial artists are more powerful. Although the demon tribe has sky god realm experts, there aren't many of them, and they're not as powerful as the sky martial artists. In general, we are stronger in terms of individual strength. However, the demon tribe has more people. If we really fight, we will be at a disadvantage. However, in terms of long-range attacks, although we don't have sky god realm experts, we have the ancient tribe to help us. In this aspect, the demon tribe is at a disadvantage. Especially if the ancient tribe can perform continuous attacks, it will greatly increase the overall strength of the sorcerer tribe." Basically, every sky god realm expert had a group attack technique. This was something that the sky martial artists could not compare to. The ancient tribe can perform best on flat ground. Hutu's eyes were burning. In this mountainous area, the ancient tribe can't perform well. Also, because of the terrain, there are ambushes everywhere. We can't protect the ancient tribe 100%. Also, because of the steepness of the mountainous area, the number of the demon tribe in the same area will decrease. To the ancient tribe, no matter the difficulty of the attack or the range, it will be hard to control. Especially after a large-scale battle, the sorcerer tribe's experts will enter the attack range. Huta mumbled to herself thoughtfully. Hearing Hutu's words, Sorcerer Emperor Zhang's eyes sparkled. He nodded with appreciation. Huta was really smart. On the other side, Xianming also understood a lot. "Brother, then we—" Huta raised her head to look at Di Jiang and said hesitantly. Sorcerer Emperor Jiang raised his hand to dispel Hutu's doubts. "This is expected. Many of the demon tribe have experienced the second war of the sorcerer and demon tribe. Of course, they know the advantages and disadvantages." Looking into the distance, Sorcerer Emperor Zhang's eyes sparkled. "If that's the case, we can bear this disadvantage." Huta crossed her arms behind her back and said, "Brother, are you afraid that the demon tribe has other schemes?" Di Jiang nodded. "Always be careful. Brother, you worry too much." Huta smiled. "The demon tribe won't be so cunning. At most, they'll set up a few traps. With the strength of the sorcerer tribe's army, there's nothing to be afraid of." Huta's eyes flashed coldly. She was full of fighting spirit. "If we win this battle again, the demon tribe will be greatly weakened." Sorcerer Emperor Jiang was silent. After a long while, he said slowly, "I hope so." His voice seemed to be heavy and helpless. Chapter 1347. Lin Feng and the other two were lucky. The place where Shi Jixin and the monster experts fought was not far from Oasis 1076. If it was like when they had just entered the sorcerer tribe, it would take them a long time to reach the oasis. Now, it only took them a little more than 2 hours to reach Oasis 1076. In these 2 hours, they had fought countless battles along the way. There were pros and cons. With Hong Ling as their mount, the burden on the two ladies was lessened. Especially since Qian Lian Huang had just recovered, it was hard for her to move. If she didn't have the red silk, she would have needed Shi Jixin to carry her on her back. However, Shi Jixin wasn't much better off. Although she had recovered a little of her strength, her vitality had been greatly damaged because she had used a forbidden technique. As for Lin Feng, he didn't mind at first. However, after experiencing the charming healing, it would be awkward for them to have intimate contact again. It was better to avoid it. At most fight. Pa. With the two sorcerer tribe vital souls in his hands, Lin Feng's purple crystal spear flashed. It was as easy as blowing off dust. Lin Feng smiled calmly. Compared to carrying Qian Lian Huang, he would rather have Hong Ling as his mount. At most, he would be hated by the sorcerer tribe. Along the way, he had killed countless sorcerer tribe experts and martial sages. But so what? For the current him, even a saint-level sorcerer tribe powerhouse was nothing in his eyes. In front of him, they did not even have the right to escape. Let's go. Lin Feng kept his purple crystal spear and smiled at the two ladies. There were dozens of corpses of sorcerer tribe experts around, but Lin Feng's expression was as if nothing had happened. He did not look like he had just fought a great battle. The two ladies agreed. They were already used to it. Lin Feng's strength was too strong. There are no more sorcerer tribes in front. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. He smiled and said, "Once we use the teleportation device, we will reach Yan Imperial City soon. Let's have a good rest." The winged bug's vision had already covered the surroundings and could see clearly. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. It didn't matter to him, but now that he had to take care of two seriously injured women, there were some things that he should avoid if he could. There was no point in trying to be a hero. It would be best to avoid the Saint King level sorcerer tribe. That's great, Shi Jixin said happily. Even Thousand Love Emperor revealed a smile. Soon, she would have a temporary place to stay. Yan Imperial City had everything one could wish for. It was a good temporary stop. Although the two women had already changed into their spare clothes, they still needed to slowly recuperate from their injuries. It was not suitable for them to rush about, let alone fight. Soon, the three of them entered the oasis. Oasis number 1076 was much more desolate compared to the oasis the three of them first entered. Most of them were experts from the sorcerer tribe. They were bustling about and did not care about the arrival of Lin Feng and the other two. After all, the sorcerer tribe had always looked down on humans. Lin Feng naturally recalled Hong Ling. The less trouble, the better. Killing was forbidden in the oasis, so the sorcerer tribe would not attack humans, but the demon tribe was different. After all, the hatred between the sorcerer tribe and the demon tribe was irreconcilable. Naturally, the more people who came to the oasis to do business, the better. Every oasis was like an independent market in the human territory. However, Lin Feng and the other two were just passing by. Using the teleportation formation, there were few people, and it was a good thing. At least, they did not have to wait long to use the teleportation formation. They stepped onto the teleportation formation calmly. 3 white lights flashed, and Lin Feng and the other two disappeared. Whoosh! After passing through the teleportation formation, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. It was crowded. It was very crowded. At a glance, there were teleportation formations everywhere. At every moment, there were at least a few hundred white lights, and this was only the tip of the iceberg. The aura was very strong, and the surroundings were very complicated. There were saint-level experts everywhere. This was the world of the true experts, and the entire area was densely packed. Beside him, Shi Jixin and Thousand Love Emperor appeared, and their beautiful eyes were shining. We're finally here. Thousand Love Emperor sighed softly. Everyone had different encounters. This time, the heavenly phenomenon was very good, but Thousand Love Emperor was undoubtedly the unlucky one. Now that they had finally arrived at Yan Imperial City, Thousand Love Emperor sighed at the ups and downs of the past few days. Yes, Shi Jixin's beautiful eyes flashed, and she was deeply touched. In just a short month, she felt like a lifetime had passed. She, who had been spoiled since childhood, had experienced so much. She had almost lost her life here. Before she set off, she was curious about the sorcerer tribe and the wasteland world. Now, she had learned a lesson, and her wisdom and experience had matured. In comparison, Lin Feng was the calmest. He was born in a humble family, and his experience might not be as rich as Thousand Love Emperors, but he had experienced it firsthand. He had narrowly escaped death countless times and had been through countless ups and downs. He was indifferent, and Thousand Love Emperor could not compare to him. Only by taking one step at a time could one reap the rewards. That should be Yin Imperial City. Lin Feng pointed to the front, his eyes shining. In the distance, there was a group of majestic buildings, which were rare in the sorcerer tribe. Needless to say, the sorcerer tribe only had a few simple buildings in the oasis. There were many majestic buildings in front of them, and they were densely packed. Apart from the legendary Yin Imperial City, it seemed there was no other possibility. MHM, Thousand Love Empress nodded her head, her beautiful eyes flickering. She had only heard of it, and her father had mentioned it many times. However, she had never entered it even once. She yearned for the legendary Yin Imperial City, especially the legendary Yin Imperial City in the sorcerer tribe. Now, it was right in front of her. Lindigo, let's go. Shiji Xin was unusually excited, and she had returned to her lively self. At this moment, she seemed to have returned to her original self. Lin Feng couldn't help but smile when he saw this. This Shiji Xin was the little girl that he knew. Okay. Lin Feng smiled. It was very lively. Along the way, Lin Feng could not take it all in. There were countless martial sages from all races, including the sorcerer tribe, the ancient tribe, and the human tribe. The liveliness here was much greater than in the oasis. And these were just the strong people who were waiting to enter. It was hard to imagine how many strong people there were in Yin Imperial City. In the distance, the city gates were wide open. Several martial sages were guarding the gates, and they were strictly guarded. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. On the way here, he had heard Thousand Love Emperor introduce it. There was only one gate in Yin Imperial City, and it should be in front. Martial sages of the various races could enter, but the requirements and prices were different. For example, the sorcerer tribe could enter at will, and there were no requirements. But for humans, only martial sages and above could enter, and they needed an essence soul. The requirements were very strict. Moreover, an essence soul was only the entrance fee. If one wanted to live in an imperial city, do business, cultivate, and so on, they would need all kinds of identity tokens, which were divided into 9 grades. For example, the Black Crystal token that Thousand Love Emperor had was called the Black Crystal token, and it was a 7th grade token. It could be exchanged for some sorcerer coins. It should be enough for us to live in Yin Imperial City for a while. Thousand Love Emperor held the Black Crystal token in her hand and said softly, "Sorcerer coins." Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and he knew. Although Thousand Love Emperor did not mention it, it was obviously the currency used by the sorcerer tribe. It seemed that the amount of sorcerer coins could be exchanged for depended on the grade of the identity token. Lin Feng's interest was piqued. Along the way, he listened to Thousand Love Emperor's introduction, and he could not wait. The 3 sorcerer tribe essence souls were already prepared. Essence souls were nothing to him. Not to mention 3, even 30 wouldn't be a problem. People came and went, and they walked forward slowly. At this moment, they were getting closer to the gate. The huge building was even more majestic up close. The gate was almost 1,000 meters wide and tall. It was like entering a giant's country. Even for sage kings, who were 100 meters tall, it was more than enough to enter. Many divine beasts, ferocious beasts, and some other neutral races did not like to transform into human form. They entered with their real bodies, which was quite large. Just as he was looking around, suddenly, Lin Feng. In the distant crowd, a loud shout was heard. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Shiji Xin and Thousand Love Emperor beside him were also very surprised. Fallen, which mountain range? The towering sign was erected in front of them. It was very eye-catching, like a huge tree that covered the mountains and plains. It could be seen clearly from afar. Damn it! Anger surged. It was a fireman who seemed to be burning with flames. It was Sorcerer King Zhurong. In this expedition, Sorcerer King Jiang, besides Hutu and Xianming, who were closest to him, Sorcerer King Zhurong, who was known for his bravery and attack, was the vanguard. Sorcerer King Gomang, who was stable and well-rounded, was guarding the rear, facing all kinds of changes. Lowly race, how dare you humiliate the sorcerer tribe? You are courting death. Sorcerer King Zhurong's flames burned, and his eyes shone brightly. He had won all the way and chased after the demons. This made him very confident and even a little arrogant. In particular, with Sorcerer King Jiang behind him, he was even more fearless. Sorcerer King, something is wrong. Beside him, Zhu Hong's eyes were like torches as she frowned slightly. That's right, Sorcerer King. The demons are clearly provoking us, Zhu Feng said in a deep voice. What's there to be afraid of? Sorcerer King Zhurong clenched his fists, and flames sizzled. They had a terrifying power that seemed to tear space apart. Among the 12 Sorcerer Kings, Zhurong's strength was enough to be ranked in the top 5. He was extremely confident in his own strength. Hong Feng, prepare for battle. Zhurong's eyes flickered. Follow me and let these demons know the power of the sorcerer tribe. This. Zhu Hong and Zhu Feng were shocked when they heard this. Zhu Hong immediately said, Sorcerer King, please reconsider. I think it's better to report this matter to Sorcerer King first. What do you know? Zhurong glared at them, and flames immediately burned. The way of war is morale. The first drum of war builds morale, then it weakens, and finally it's exhausted. Our Sorcerer Tribe army has traveled a long way and chased after the demons for thousands of miles. Now that those bastards of the Sorcerer Tribe are right in front of us, and they even insulted us. If we stop now, our morale will be greatly damaged. Zhu Feng cupped his fists and said solemnly, I'm afraid we've fallen into the demon's trap. What kind of schemes can these uncivilized beasts have? Zhurong's eyes flickered as he said coldly, even if they do, they can't stop the unstoppable attacks of our Sorcerer Tribe army. Zhu Hong, Zhu Feng, listen up. Zhurong's flames erupted as he shouted, lead a vanguard. Sound the war drums and charge with me. Those who disobey will be killed without mercy. Zhu Hong and Zhu Feng's expressions changed slightly. They cupped their fists and said, Yes, Sorcerer King. Chapter 1348. The second head-on battle between the witches and demons had begun. It was a spectacular and earth-shattering spectacle. The witches had high morale. The vanguard, led by Zhurong, was invincible. Zhurong had led the first head-on battle with the demons, so he was no stranger to it this time. As the vanguard, they had to have the courage to go forward without fear. Zhurong was the only one who could take on this responsibility. If it were Magus King Gomang guarding the rear, he would definitely think twice before acting, but Zhurong, he turned a blind eye to it. He went straight for the Luo mountain range, not caring about any tricks or traps of the demons. There was only one thought in Zhurong's mind, go. There was no need to worry about what would happen next. It was not what he needed to worry about, because the Magus King would deal with it later. What he needed to do was very simple. It was enough to carry out the meaning of being the vanguard. Zhurong, Hutu frowned. Isn't he too reckless? Gomang looked solemn. Really? Xianming was stunned. You don't understand, Xianming. Hutu looked serious. The demons are acting a little strange this time. They don't play by the rules. Why would they defend a mountain range in the past? They wouldn't put up provocative words like Luo mountain range on this mountain range. It's most likely a trap, Gomang said slowly. Everyone was discussing animatedly. However, as the real commander of the witches, Magus King Dijiang kept his hands behind his back and said nothing. He floated in the air and looked at the Luo mountain range. The battle had completely broken out. Dijiang looked calm. He didn't seem to be dissatisfied with Zhurong's decision. Suddenly, do you think Zhurong doesn't know? Dijiang's voice sounded. Hutu and Gomong were stunned. Brother, you mean? Hutu's eyes flickered. It's my order, Dijiang said calmly, but Hutu and Gomong were surprised. Dijiang looked back at the three of them and said calmly, we don't have a choice, nor do we have time to choose. We can't estimate the strength of the demons. We can only touch them with real strength. If I were the commander of the demons, I would avoid the enemy's main force and attack their weak points. If the enemy dares to test us, I'll eat as many as they can. Furthermore, the longer we drag this out, the more advantageous it will be for the defense. The initiative is actually in their hands. Dijiang's eyes flickered. He turned back and looked into the distance, his eyes filled with determination. Most of the time, even though they knew that there were tigers in the mountains, they had no choice but to walk towards the tigers, because there is only one path in front of them. He could also see that something was wrong with the demonic beasts. They were completely different from the Second Great Shaman War, but so what? In war, strength was a deciding factor. Yin Imperial City. Lin Feng's eyes widened when he heard the loud voice. He couldn't be more familiar with this voice. Looking towards the source of the voice, it was Jin Ji, whom he had not seen for a long time, who was happily waving at him. His face was rosy, and he didn't look injured at all. Lin Feng suddenly smiled. His hanging heart finally calmed down, and he let out a sigh of relief. Qian Lian Huang and Shi Xin were also overjoyed. When the two girls found out that Jin Ji had gone missing, they were rather worried. Compared to obtaining treasures, to these people, it was more important for all of their companions to be healthy and survive in a Magus world. That was the greatest reward. Like a family that had been separated, they were finally reunited after going through ups and downs. Brother Jean, where's your communication compass? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. It's broken. Jin Ji shrugged helplessly. A few of them were broken during the training, and I forgot that there are no more spares in my storage ring. Huh. Lin Feng smiled helplessly. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was still wondering what had happened to Jin Ji and was looking for him everywhere. Who would have thought that he had only broken his communication compass? Sure, Jiexan was so angry that she put her hands on her hips and said angrily, You worried us to death. Jin Ji scratched his head embarrassedly. It was rare that he didn't argue with Shi Xin. So, I was waiting for you here. Qian Lian Huang said softly. There are so many human experts coming and going here. Most of them have spare communication compasses. Can't you just ask them to buy one? Jin Ji was stunned and his eyes widened. Why didn't I think of that? Everyone was speechless. Shi Xin was so angry that she turned her face away. Although she quarreled with Jin Ji on a daily basis, her worry for Jin Ji was no less than Lin Feng's. She just didn't say it out loud. You know how to wait. Lin Feng smiled. If they were in other places, it would be difficult for them to meet. However, Jin Ji was smart. He knew that everyone would gather at Yin Imperial City, and so he came here early to wait. He didn't enter Yin Imperial City and waited at the only gate. As long as they didn't die, there would be a chance for them to meet. Have you waited for a long time? Qian Lian Huang asked softly. Jin Ji's face turned red. He laughed and said, Not long. Let's go in and talk. Everyone smiled. Even Shi Xin snickered. From Jin Ji's expression, it was obvious that he had been waiting for more than a day or two. At least half a month. Lin Feng thought to himself. Calculating the time, it had been half a month since he left the fearsome grounds. If Jin Ji had left in the Great Array, it would have been even longer. However, it didn't matter. There were gains and losses. At least, Jin Ji seemed to have gained a lot. You've successfully fused? Lin Feng looked at Jin Ji. Shi Xin and Qian Lian Huang's eyes lit up. They naturally understood what Lin Feng was asking. Of course, Jin Ji was beaming with joy and pointed at his right arm. Lin Feng looked over and saw a clear imprint that seemed to contain a mysterious power. It was the Red Heaven-class treasure that Jin Ji had fused with back then. Show off. Shirji Xin raised her head and pretended to be disdainful. The two of them had been competing for a long time. Their luck was good, and they each fused with a red heaven-class innate treasure. They snorted and walked forward. Neither of them was willing to give in to the other. They had just reunited and they were already fighting. Looking at the two of them who were acting like children, Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. He turned to look at Qian Lianhuang. Just as he was about to speak, he saw a dim light in Qian Lianhuang's eyes. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He immediately understood. No matter who it was, they would inevitably be disappointed. Out of the four of them, only Qian Lianhuang had nothing and was seriously injured. When we enter Yin Imperial City and settle down, I'll give her a meteor, unique treasure. Lin Feng said softly. He had made a decision. They had gone through thick and thin together. There was no reason to let Qian Lianhuang be the only one disappointed. Heaven-class innate treasures were precious, but they were enough for him. Giving one to Qian Lianhuang was nothing. Although treasures were precious, friendship was more precious. Putting aside the difference between men and women, Qian Lianhuang was definitely a friend worth making. What's wrong? Qian Lianhuang smiled weakly and looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng came back to his senses and smiled. Nothing. Let's go. We'll find a place to settle down. Qian Lianhuang nodded and said, Entering was smoother than expected. There was no need to queue. After all, most warriors did not need to check their bodies. However, humans had many restrictions. Qian Lianhuang also needed 4 essence souls. Even if they had a rank 7 black crystal token, it did not mean that they had special privileges. This was the rule of being a human. The guard at the door looked at them with disdain. He did not even bother to look at them. He casually threw 4 black crystal tokens and waved his hand as if he was chasing something away. He shouted, "Go in." Discrimination. It was too common. Dignity and status could only be obtained through strength. However, the current humans did not have this qualification. They were in a weak position all year round. Even the humans themselves had subtly accepted this position and were willing to become the slaves of the witch tribe. Many humans even had unrealistic fantasies and were proud of it. Looking down on people. Sure, Jixin muttered. Qian Lianhuang's expression changed. Jinji was so shocked that he quickly covered Shi Jixin's mouth. However, it was too late. Although her voice was soft and was in a noisy environment, how could the witch tribe guards not hear her? They were saint-level existences. An upper-level, saint-level expert from the Gong Gong tribe suddenly turned his head. His bell-sized eyes were wide open and his aura was majestic. Beside him, the experts from the Changliang tribe and the Yinzi tribe also turned around. Their battle intent was clear. Jinji reacted quickly. He immediately let go of his hand and scolded Shi Jixin. So what if I look down on you? You want to marry into my Jin family? Dream on. At this moment, the surrounding gazes were focused on them, including the experts from the witch tribe guarding the city. Their aura was strong, causing Shi Jixin to be stunned. Thump! Thump! Jinji's heart was beating fast. He did not even dare to look at the witch tribe guards, afraid that he would be exposed. Shi Jixin's face was pale. She knew that she had caused trouble. This was the territory of the witch tribe. Suddenly, step. Lin Feng calmly took a step forward. He stood between Shi Jixin and the sorcerer tribe guards with a faint smile on his face. Sorry, the young couple was quarreling. I might have been a little loud. Lin Feng smiled and looked at the witch tribe guards. His eyes were bright. Although his voice was soft, it was neither servile nor overbearing. He faced the witch tribe guards alone without any fear. Faint star source energy gathered around him. Although Lin Feng had a smile on his face, his aura was quite strong. He stood tall like a mountain, unshakable. The leader of the Gong Gong tribe expert's expression changed slightly. He snorted and said, "Be careful in the future." Yes, yes. Jinji understood at this moment. He nodded and gave Shi Jixin a look. However, the little girl was a little stunned. She had never experienced such a situation. However, the witch tribe guards did not care. As the Gong Gong tribe experts turned around, the rest of the guards returned to normal. The situation quickly calmed down. Phew, Jinji let out a long breath and smiled bitterly. He felt that his heart was about to jump out of his throat. It was too dangerous. He was so close to being in big trouble. Although these witch tribe guards were not strong, this was one of the 3 imperial cities of the witch tribe. There were many Saint King level witches. I'm sorry. Shirjishin bit her cherry lips, and 2 streams of tears fell from her eyes. At this moment, she finally knew that she had done something wrong. She had almost implicated her companions. Why are you crying? Lin Feng smiled and walked over. He rubbed Shirjishin's head and held her in his arms. It's a small matter. Don't take it to heart. You're right. They're indeed snobs. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly. They're just a group of dogs who bully the weak and fear the strong. Let's go. Chapter 1349. Witch Mountain Range. An unprecedented war broke out in the giant mountain range that stretched for millions of miles. Led by Witch King Zhurong, the vanguard of the wizard tribe split into 3 groups and attacked the demon tribe. The demon tribe didn't hide their tracks at all. The demon tribe was like a city gate that was open to welcome the witch tribe. The Witch Mountain Range plaques were a blatant provocation. It was as if they were telling the witch tribe, "Come if you dare." Boom, boom. All kinds of origin energy collided with each other. All kinds of forces of heaven and earth and the Tao of constellations exploded. The colors of the astral origin energy with rich constellation marks started a life and death battle between the demon tribe and the witch tribe. This was the most direct battle, a face-to-face battle. It was chaos. However, it was a battle without any fancy tricks. The demon tribe didn't have any traps or schemes. Instead, they formed a defensive formation and faced the witch tribe head-on. They used the sturdiest shields to fight against the sharpest spears. The crazy attacks ignited the flames of war. The entire Witch Mountain Range was boiling. Witch King, do you need help? Gomong asked seriously. Yes, brother. The battle is in a stalemate. Why don't Xian Ming and I lead the army to support Zhurong and break the balance? Hutu's eyes were burning with fighting spirit. The battle was so intense. They were facing their archenemy, the demon tribe. It made his blood boil. Xian Ming was beside him. He couldn't wait to fight. He was more belligerent than Hutu. Witch King Dijiang's eyes flashed. No one knew what he was thinking. Looking at the balanced situation, he seemed to have other ideas. Or maybe he was hesitating. There was something he couldn't figure out. Although Gomong and Hutu were eager to fight, Dijiang didn't say anything. Gomong and Hutu looked at each other and felt anxious. However, they were different from Zhurong. Their positions were different. They couldn't do anything. After all, Witch King Dijiang was the real commander. The Battle of the Witch Mountain Range had just begun. The vanguard led by Zhurong was like a hot knife through butter. Their momentum was extraordinary. However, the monster army was still tenaciously fighting back and had not been defeated yet. Fresh troops kept appearing from the rear, which kept the morale of the monster army at a steady level, instead of collapsing. The strength of both sides were consumed at an extremely fast speed. It seemed that they wanted to see which side couldn't hold on first. There's no rush. After a long while, Witch King Jiang finally opened his mouth. With Zhurong's strength, no one in the army of the monster clan can compete with him. This is a great advantage. Gomong, Dijiang called out. Here, Shaman Sovereign. Gomong cupped his hands. Lead the 3rd and 4th squads of the ancient race and attack. Wait for an opportunity to reinforce the vanguard. Witch King Zhang's eyes lit up. In addition, send the 2nd and 11th teams of the rear guard to strengthen the defense against the ancient race. But remember, do not take the initiative to attack. Yes, Sorcerer Emperor. Gomeng accepted the order and left without any hesitation. What he needed to do was to carry out Witch Emperor Zhang's orders completely without leaving out a single detail. That would be enough. Big brother. Huda's expression was anxious. She knelt on one knee and said, the demons are gradually adapting to the strength of their attacks. If this continues, It will be harmful to the Magi. Big brother, please allow me to lead the middle army to fight. Me too. Xianming knelt down and cupped his hands when he saw Hutu asking to fight. Get up. Dijiang looked calm. He waved his right hand, and a strong force swept over like the wind. Hutu and Xianming stood up immediately. Their expressions changed slightly. It was Dijiang's brushing just now that had really exerted force, and he clearly expressed his attitude. Before we know what the demons are planning, don't act rashly. Dijiang's eyes lit up. When two armies are fighting, don't be impatient. With his hands behind his back, Dijiang looked into the distance calmly. He had experienced the second war of the Magi and demons. He had been suppressed by the demons for dozens of years. In the end, he managed to turn the tables. Dijiang had great patience and endurance. He was the real commander of an army. The demons. Dijiang, you can really keep your composure. It was a tall and sturdy man dressed in golden armor. His blood-red eyes were sparkling, and the Golden King character on his forehead was eye-catching. It was the king of the Blood Tiger clan, Kue Tianyuan. Ha! Soft laughter was heard. Fox Princess's eyes were bewitching. She pointed with her fingers. I told you, Dijiang, that old fox won't fall for it so easily. Clang! A deafening sound was heard. A huge spiked club flashed with ferocious colors and was inserted into the ground. Don't wait. Let me old bear go. I'll kill him. The voice was violent, and his nostrils were breathing heavily. It was a bearman with bristling fur. He held a spiked club in his hand. His brown eyes were as big as copper bells and flashed with intense killing intent. It was the demon king of the violent bear clan, Xiangbao. Like his name, he was very irritable. Calm down. An equally thick arm appeared in front of him and stopped Xiangbao. His physique was not inferior to Xiangbao's at all. However, his expression was serious, and his eyes were calm. The man slowly said, If Dijiang was so easily fooled, how could our ancestor have suffered a great defeat? The demon king of the Dragon Bull clan, Niu Yunlei. The four demon kings were gathered. They were waiting solemnly. They were not in the fallen Witch Mountain range. Otherwise, Dijiang would have sensed it. However, they were connected by a teleportation array. If the four demons wanted to participate in the battle, they could appear in the fallen Witch Mountain range at any time. Dijiang's guess was right. The demon race's vanguard would definitely not be slaughtered by the Magi. If they lost this battle again, the morale of the demon race who attacked first would definitely collapse. The possibility of winning the third Great Magi Demon War would become extremely small. This was something the demon race would never allow to happen. Although the new commander was severely injured, the demon race had a deeper foundation than the Magi. The four demon kings still had their strength. If they joined forces, the four top experts of the demon race would definitely not be weaker than the new commander. At this moment, they were gathered together and were hesitating to prepare. Even the five demon kings did not participate in such an important meeting, but there was a human in it. Lam Tokti, don't worry, demon kings. Please enter the trap. The show has yet to begin. Please wait patiently for a while. I promise, the next part will be quite exciting. Lam Tokti's eyes were bright. He was full of confidence. A great battle broke out. However, at this moment, Yin Imperial City was filled with joy and harmony. The atmosphere was peaceful. Lin Feng and the other three were in a good mood. Although there was some unhappiness at the city gate, it was just a small interlude. Compared to the desperate fight for the heavenly treasures and the several near-death battles, what was this battle array? Yin Imperial City was rather unique. There were buildings of various styles and majestic shapes. There was also a unique atmosphere in the surroundings. It was like a new world. This place had the luxurious prosperity of the human region and the cultural aura of the ancient race and the Magi who were close to nature. Many of the buildings were even made of trees. There were also many earth fortresses and water screen worlds. They were all real. What a refreshing feeling, Lin Feng murmured. Looking from afar, he could even see a waterfall flowing, forming a water corridor. It was a strange combination of the aura of nature and the characteristics of the city. However, It was fascinating and extraordinary. So many sage, king-level experts. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Along the way, he had seen at least 10 sage, king-level experts. It was quite surprising. When he was in Shirluo County, saint-level masters were unreachable, and he could not even see one. When he became the ruler of the southern region, saint-level masters were common to him, but Saint King-level masters were rare. Now, Saint King-level masters seemed to have become more common. Different strength and different outlook. What I see now and what I saw before, even if it was the same scenery or the same person, the feeling is completely different. However, Yin Imperial City is indeed very special. Sighing softly, Lin Feng's eyes flashed. It was like looking at flowers on horseback. The novelty along the way had opened his eyes. However, novelty was novelty, and all of this was nothing more than passing clouds. What he truly cared about was only one goal. Ziyao. Ziyao, are you here? Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he longed for her. It had been almost 10 years. There were too many joys and sorrows to describe. Today he had walked this path and stood here. It was more or less related to Ziyao's departure. One of the reasons he had been working hard and cultivating was also for Ziyao, the first woman he loved. Even after he had Qianqian and Yuma, his feelings for Ziyao had never faded. In fact, as time passed, he missed her more and more. He wanted to find her and tell her that he was now qualified and capable to truly take care of her and protect her. He would never let her leave again. Pursing his lips, Lin Feng's eyes were filled with deep longing. At this moment, no matter how beautiful the surrounding scenery was, it could no longer enter his eyes. At this moment, all the colors in the world had lost their luster in his eyes. His heart was aching. An indescribable sadness surfaced in his heart. It had been suppressed for too long. "I miss you so much, Ziyao," Lin Feng murmured softly. There was no need to hide his feelings. His eyes were filled with longing as he looked into the distance. The beautiful scenery, the people coming and going, and... Wait! Lin Feng was stunned. He turned his head abruptly. What did he just see? A purple figure. It was very familiar. Where? Lin Feng's expression changed. His heart was about to jump out of his throat. He did not see wrongly. Although it was only for a moment, he would never forget it. Although it was not Ziyao's figure, it was another person he was extremely familiar with. An empress who was on par with the commander in the Sky Martial Continent. The Moon Empress, Ziyao's sister. It's her. The person I saw just now must be the Moon Empress. Lin Feng's eyes were burning. His body trembled slightly. Nervousness, excitement, all kinds of complicated emotions mixed together. It was rare that he could not control the intense thoughts in his heart. As long as he could find the Moon Empress, then the chances of him meeting Ziyao, it would become extremely huge. Chapter 1350. What's wrong? Qian Lian Huang was the first to notice Lin Feng's abnormality. Shi Xin and Jin Ji stopped bickering and looked back. Seeing Lin Feng's change in expression, they were shocked. Brother Lin, Linda Gu, Jin Ji and Shi Xin asked. However, Lin Feng could not hear them at all. All his consciousness was focused on his eyes. His heart was filled with that purple figure. Where is it? Where is it? Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly as he clenched his fists. Stepping off the ground, Lin Feng floated in midair, overlooking the entire world. His gaze landed in the distance. Biting his lips, he could not calm down. At this moment, the purple figure seemed to have disappeared without a trace. No, not at all. Cold sweat dripped down Lin Feng's forehead. His great hope turned into deep disappointment at this moment, and he couldn't help but feel disappointed. 1 minute, 2 minutes, time passed slowly. He became more and more confused. His eyes dimmed. Letting out a long breath, Lin Feng closed his eyes and looked up at the sky. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart, as if it was being squeezed. He had never been so close, but he missed it. This feeling made him feel extremely uncomfortable. The slightest difference made a difference of 1,000 miles. Stepping on the ground, Lin Feng's face was slightly pale. Now that he was on the ground, he did not feel anything. The surrounding scenery was still the same, but his heart was no longer moved. Everything seemed to have disappeared along with the purple figure. His mood was extremely bad. Qianli and Huang and the other two did not speak. Although Shi Jixin was curious, she knew that it was not the time to ask. Everyone had a weakness in their heart, and they had secrets. After a long while, I'm fine. Lin Feng forced a smile. This was his own matter. There was no need to worry them and affect their mood. Jin Ji and Shi Jixin looked at each other. They wanted to say something, but stopped. They looked at Qianli and Huang. After hesitating for a moment, Thousand Love Empress said softly, "Actually, if you have any problems, you can tell us. One person's plan is short, but a group's is better. Perhaps we can help you. Otherwise, telling you about it will at least make you feel better. Of course, if it's a big secret, you don't have to tell us." Thousand Love Emperor added with a smile. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. "It's not a big secret." Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he looked at the three of them. They were all companions who had gone through thick and thin with him. He said softly, "Actually, you should know why I came to the Sorcerer Realm." The trio's eyes lit up. Shi Jixin's big, watery eyes widened as she asked in disbelief, "Linda Ge, did you see your wife just now?" Lin Feng shook his head. The three of them were stunned. "She's not my wife, Ziyao." Lin Feng smiled faintly as he looked into the distance. "Her name is Ziyu. She's Ziyao's sister." Lin Feng's eyes flickered as he recalled. Ziyao's departure might be related to her. Even if it isn't, if we can find Ziyu, we might be able to find Ziyao. Everyone nodded in realization. They finally understood. "Linda Ge, are you sure you didn't see wrongly?" Shi Jixin asked suspiciously. "Definitely not." Lin Feng smiled faintly and said with certainty, "Even though so many years have passed, Ziyu hasn't changed at all. Only her clothes and hairstyle have changed." He always had a photographic memory. Although his doppelganger wasn't as good as his main body, the possibility of him seeing wrongly was very small. "What are you talking about?" Jin Ji looked at Shi Jixin and snorted. "You think it's you? You're mistaken." Shi Jixin was speechless. She was about to say something when Thousand Love Emperor spoke first. She looked at Lin Feng and said, "She disappeared after a glance." "That's right." Lin Feng nodded. "Can you confirm her location?" Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flickered. "This?" Lin Feng frowned and closed his eyes. He clenched his fists and felt that it was a pity. If it was his main body that saw her, he would definitely remember it clearly. However, if it was his doppelganger, he just glanced at her. If he could remember clearly, he would have gone to look for her. No matter how much he concentrated, it was useless now. "No." Lin Feng opened his eyes and shook his head. He had missed such a great opportunity. "Don't worry." Thousand Love Emperor smiled understandingly, and her eyes lit up. "What about the general area or direction?" Lin Feng's heart trembled. He instantly understood Thousand Love Emperor's meaning. He secretly blamed himself for not being calm. Even if he was usually in a good mood, when it came to serious matters, he still panicked. Taking a deep breath and calming his mind, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. His heart gradually calmed down. It was useless to blame himself now. The most important thing was he had to think of a way. The area, I should be able to confirm a large area. The direction, I can confirm it. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he looked at Thousand Love Emperor. Thousand Love Emperor nodded and said, "It's impossible for a person to disappear for no reason." Lin Feng, your reaction was already very fast. The moment you caught a glimpse of her, you already searched for her location and direction. However, you still couldn't find her. Especially when searching from high up in the sky, it would eliminate the possibility of blind spots. Then, the biggest possibility for Ziyu to disappear is that she entered one of the buildings. Her words were clear and logical. Not only Jin Ji and Shi Jixin nodded in agreement, but Lin Feng also felt admiration. She had helped him solve a big problem. Let's go. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. At this moment, he only needed to confirm the area and direction. Then, he could confirm the buildings. Perhaps he could find Ziyu. The thought was beautiful. However, the reality was too harsh. It was too far away. The region that he caught a glimpse of here, when zoomed in, was not small at all. Although he had confirmed the direction and area, there were hundreds of buildings that could be involved. Among them, there was even a large teleportation point. If she left from the teleportation point, how are we going to find her? Jin Ji was a little stunned. Who is as pessimistic and desperate as you? Sure, Ji Xin pouted. You have to think positively. Seriously. Jin Ji's face turned red as he retorted. Then we have to consider all possibilities. The pair of enemies started quarreling again. Lin Feng and Thousand Love Emperor were already used to it. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. He had already regained his composure. Jin Ji was right. They had to consider all possibilities. However, Ji Xin was also right. They had to think positively and not be so pessimistic. At least they had a clue now. It was better than having no clue at all. Are you all right? Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes twinkled. I'm fine. Lin Feng smiled faintly. There are at least some clues, right? Thousand Love Emperor smiled and nodded. At the very least, it proves that Ziyu came to Yin Imperial City. If there's a first time, there will naturally be a second time and a third time. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled as he smiled. Even if I can't see Ziyu this time, I might be able to see her the next time. In fact, I might even see Ziyao directly. Only with confidence, there was hope. Only with hope, there was a chance. Then what's the plan next? Thousand Love Emperor asked softly. Draw her. Lin Feng's eyes shone. Although he said that he would not give up on any possibility of finding Ziyu. Waiting for her was a good idea. However, he preferred to take the initiative to find evidence of Ziyu's existence. Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flashed. As someone with a portrait, Lin Feng nodded. If Ziyu really appeared in this area, someone might be able to recognize her. Although the chances were slim, how could he know if it was impossible without trying? That's a feasible idea. Thousand Love Emperor smiled. Even the three of us have never seen Ziyao and Ziyu. We might not even know who they are when we pass by them. However, Thousand Love Emperor paused and pointed at the building. We can't enter most of the places here. Lin Feng's eyes shone. Identity token? Looking in the direction Thousand Love Emperor was pointing at, there was a silver building in front. There was a token engraved on the door, but it was not black, but white. Identity tokens were divided into 9 grades. Black was grade 7, 8, and 9. White was grade 4, 5, and 6. Gold was grade 1, 2, and 3. The silver building showed that it was a white stone token, which meant that only those with a grade 6 white stone token could enter. And this was not considered a high requirement. When he was checking the area, he even saw a gold iron token. Grade 2 identity token. Don't worry too much. Thousand Love Emperor smiled. Basically, only the sorcerer tribe has a gold token. If we can't enter, Ziyu might not be able to either. Lin Feng nodded. Indeed, Thousand Love Emperor's words made sense. How about this, Lin Feng? You wait here for a while. Ziyu might not have left yet. Thousand Love Emperor said softly. Ji Xin, Jin Ji, and I will go to the Wu Coin Merchant House to exchange some Wu coins. We will look for you here later. Okay, Lin Feng replied. Thousand Love Emperor's words were exactly what he wanted. There was still a chance. There were hundreds of buildings in the area. Since she had entered, there was always a possibility of her coming out. Of course, she might not have come out the same way. According to Thousand Love Emperor, there were many small teleportation arrays in the buildings that could teleport her to every part of Yin Imperial City. Or maybe Ziyu had entered a cultivation ground and was not ready to come out. Of course, the biggest possibility was that she had entered the teleportation array and left Yin Imperial City directly. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He floated in the air and looked down, not even blinking. No matter what, as long as there was a chance, he would not give up. If Ziyu really wanted to come out, then the next few hours would be the most likely. Of course, it was still a failure. When Thousand Love Emperor and the rest returned, they still found nothing. Lin Feng's expression did not change. He had already accepted reality and guessed this result. There was no need to be too concerned. As long as Ziyu really appeared, then she would definitely leave her footprints here in Yin Imperial City. She would leave behind evidence of her existence. It would not be too late for him to search for her slowly. Brother Lin, here you go. Jin Ji smiled and tossed 2 coins over. Lin Feng casually reached out and caught them. With a clang, he held the 2 coins in his hand. Judging from their shape, he knew they were Wu coins. The images of the 12 ancestors of witches were printed on the coins. On the back, there was a number 1, which represented the value of the Wu coin. However, when he held them in his hand, he felt a different kind of energy. This is... Lin Feng's expression changed. Chapter 1351. It had a completely different texture from the star crystal. It was indescribably familiar, indescribably tempting. Lin Feng's eyes glowed with passion. Instantly, a light flashed in his left hand and the star origin stone appeared. With the influx of energy, Lin Feng's chest heaved up and down. He was extremely surprised. The heavens were always so mysterious, losing on the swings and gaining on the roundabouts. He had just lost Ziyu's whereabouts, but who would have thought that he would be given such a big surprise? Star origin energy. Within the Wu coin, there was the star origin energy that he had been searching for. This star origin energy was different from his star origin energy. It was a purer and more powerful energy, and it did not have any aura. It was like the most basic composition of the universe, the purest energy between heaven and earth. There were levels to power. Star origin energy also existed. This time, his body had broken through from the saint level to the saint level, and his star origin energy had increased by 1 level. Just like humans, there were infancy, adolescence, and adulthood. If the saint-level star origin energy was the infancy, then the Saint King level star origin energy was the adolescence. If one were to level up and become a true Starry Sky elite, then the star origin energy would be the true adulthood, which was the energy contained within the Wu coin. It was the energy of the rare and precious star origin stone. It was also the energy that powered the Netherworld ship and awakened a lot of energy. All this time, he had been searching for it with all his might, but to no avail. Who would have thought that now? It would appear right in front of him. There is star origin energy within the Wu coin. Lin Feng's eyes glowed, and he could not help but shake his head. Although it was hard to believe, the truth was right in front of him. The 2 Wu coins in his hands contained star origin energy, and it was not a fluke. To be able to become a currency, it must have more than 99% of the same structure. In other words, every Wu coin should contain star origin energy. But it is very rare. Lin Feng frowned slightly. The star origin energy within the 2 Wu coins was not even 1% of the star origin stone in his hands. It was tasteless, but it was a pity to throw it away. What is it, Brother Lin? Jin Ji asked curiously. Yes, Lindigo, is there any news? Shi Jixin's big eyes glowed with hope. Only Thousand Love Emperor's beautiful eyes flickered, but she didn't say anything. In terms of experience and observation skills, the 2 of them were far from Thousand Love Emperor. That's not true. Lin Feng smiled and looked at the 2 of them. He was in a good mood. Although the star source energy contained in the shaman coins was scarce, just like the appearance of the purple moon, it was at least a way out away. Especially now that his mother was also looking for star origin stones. If he put in more effort, perhaps he would be able to find it after piecing it together. It was always good to have hope. No one could say for sure what the future would hold. By the way, Empress Lien. Turning around, Lin Feng looked at Qian Lian Huang, his eyes sparkling. How do you exchange Wu coins? Jin Ji and Shi Jixin glanced at each other, somewhat surprised and confused. However, Thousand Love Empress simply smiled, as if she had guessed that Lin Feng would ask, and slowly answered, barter or star crystals. Generally speaking, bartering is more common. There's a limit to the exchange of star crystals, and the exchange rate is different. However, no matter which one it is, the total amount of wizard coins that can be exchanged for depends on the identity token. Qianlian Huang explained tirelessly. Not only Lin Feng, but even Jin Ji and Shi Jixin had gained a lot. They had benefited a lot. Lin Feng's eyes sparkled, and he seemed to be deep in thought. According to Qianlian Huang, there was a limit to the shaman coins. For example, the shaman coin in his hand was worth 1 shaman coin. In the Shaman Coin Merchant Guild, there were shaman coins worth 10, 100, and even 1,000. If he was not wrong, the larger the shaman coin, the more star source energy it contained. It would be a proportional relationship. Ordinary people might not know the value of star source energy, but how could the shaman tribe not know? Otherwise, why would they seep it into the shaman coins, and why would they limit the exchange rate? If the shaman coins were just a currency without any value, then, to the shaman tribe, the more they could exchange, the better. There was no need for them to be so superfluous and shoot themselves in the foot. There was no hurry. Lin Feng was secretly making a move. Perhaps, as long as he had enough shaman coins, he would be able to extract enough star source energy. However, this could only be seen as a long-term goal, and it would be difficult to achieve in the near future. Not to mention whether he could successfully exchange it. Just the price of the shaman coins was enough to make one speechless. It was very expensive. It was far beyond his imagination. Including his own 2 shaman coins, Qianlian Huang had only exchanged 10 shaman coins, but she had spent a total of 100 million star crystals. It was a shocking number, and he was shocked when he heard it. In the human territory, 100 million star crystals was a huge amount. However, in Yin Imperial City, it was just pocket money. The matter of the shaman coins was temporarily put aside. Lin Feng was not too anxious. On one hand, this path was too limited, and on the other hand, his mother was thinking of a way, so he did not need to be too anxious. Duo and the nether ship could wait, and there was enough time after his father was frozen. However, Ziyao could not wait, and the war between the shamans and demons could not wait either. Right now, he still had to focus on the original path. The matter of the shaman coins would be settled later. You can stay here first. I'm fine by myself, Lin Feng said softly. What are you saying? We should share blessings and hardships together. That's what brothers are for. Jin Ji patted his chest and said, I've been waiting outside Yin Imperial City for so long. A few days is nothing. Yes, one more person means one more pair of eyes, Linda Ge. Shi Jixin smiled brightly and said, Who knows, with me around, your luck might become even better. Come on, you jinx. Jin Ji muttered, I wonder who it is that keeps dragging us down. What did you say? Shi Jixin glared at him with her hands on her hips. The two of them started quarreling again. Enemies were bound to meet. Looking at their red faces, Lin Feng could not help but smile. He did not know if they could help him, but at least, with the two of them around, he did not have to worry about being lonely. Waiting was boring, and he needed something to relax himself. It was not a good thing to be in that tense state all the time, just like a taut string. He looked at Qianlian Huang, and the latter looked at him too. The two of them smiled knowingly, waiting patiently. Although the most likely hours had passed, Lin Feng did not give up. No matter how small the chances were, he had to try. There was still time. Waiting for an opportunity might be the stupidest way, but at least it was better than nothing. Lin Feng was betting. He was betting that Ziyu did not enter the teleportation formation, that Ziyu would return the way she came, and that he was betting on his luck and his fate with Ziyao. Whether it was Qianlian Huang, Jin Ji, or Shi Jixin, they all sincerely hoped that Lin Feng's wish would come true. However, whether it would succeed or not depended on fate. The fallen Witch Mountains. The outbreak of war shook the heavens and the earth. The first attack of the demon race was avoided by the witch race. The first counterattack of the witch race was successful. The first attack of the Witch King, Jiang, wiped out half of the demon race's vanguard and killed one of the 12 demon stars of the demon race. However, it was more because he caught the demon race off guard. It was a real face-to-face battle, a battle between the tip of a needle and the tip of a wheat. This time, this was the real show. Boom, rumble, boom, boom, boom. Countless mountains were flattened, and countless rivers were submerged. The heavens fell, and the earth cracked. The horror of war was fully displayed here, and it was not inferior to the second great witch race. The entire fallen witch mountains experienced a war like a catastrophe. Corpses were everywhere, and blood flowed like rivers. The thick smell of blood permeated the entire mountain, causing the sky to turn blood red. It was a heart-wrenching sight, and this was only the vanguard battle. One attacked, one defended, and the wind blew and the water rose. It had to be said that Di Jiang was very careful. He sent Zhu Rong to kill in all directions, and at the same time borrowed the strength of the ancient race to play to the advantage of the human race. However, the demon race was not to be outdone. They did not take the initiative to attack, but continued to reinforce the witch race while ignoring the provocation of the ancient race. They defended until the end. This was quite rare and incredible for the demon race in the past. The originally chaotic demon race was made up of countless clans and had no military discipline. However, they were now united. It's not simple. Witch King Jiang put his hands behind his back and looked at the war in the distance with a serious expression. Hutu and Xianming were burning with anxiety. On the one hand, the ancient race's reinforcements did not have an absolute advantage. On the other hand, they were both warlike and could not sit still. However, Di Jiang did not give the order. No matter how strong their fighting spirit was, they could only suppress it. Witch King Gomong came from afar with a serious expression. He was ordered to send the ancient race's reinforcements, but they did not achieve the expected effect. Gomong felt a little guilty. Well done. Di Jiang did not scold them. Instead, he said something that surprised Gomong and the other two. They could not understand it. Turning back and looking at the three, Di Jiang's eyes flashed sharply, and he sighed in his heart. How could he not see that the demon race was very different this time? There must be someone behind it. But the witch race, Hutu, is calm, but she is too warlike. She is good enough to be a general, but she is not qualified to be a commander. Gomong is smooth and slick. He can take on any position in the war. However, just like the cultivation of skills, he is well-rounded but not proficient. Zhurong, Xianming, Di Jiang closed his eyes and felt a little helpless. It was difficult to be perfect in the world. The witch race did have true commander talents, but the stronger they were, the greater their ambition. However, they were not of the same mind. It had nothing to do with him, but if they were not of the same mind as the witch race, what was the use of being strong? What a pity. If I had time, I would nurture my son well. Perhaps he can also inherit my legacy. However, there were no ifs. Di Jiang also knew that this was the reason why he was so troubled. Heaven did not listen to man. Just as he was thinking, suddenly, bang, a monstrous, domineering aura resounded in the distance. A terrifying power arose spontaneously as if the world was collapsing. Gomong and the other two's expressions changed as they turned to look. At this moment, Di Jiang opened his eyes. The light was bright. Chapter 1352. There was a terrifying explosion. In a huge call in the fallen shaman mountain, there was a loud explosion. There was a violent earthquake, and the mountains collapsed. The earth and rocks were everywhere, so they couldn't see what had happened. However, the majestic aura and the tyrannical power of a top sage king were enough to explain everything. After defending for a long time and waiting for a long time, the demon clan, finally, they couldn't take it anymore. Peak of the Saint King realm. Xianming's eyes sparkled. He lived by fighting. Perhaps he wasn't as smart as Hutu, but he was stronger than her. Especially his boiling fighting spirit. He was unyielding and addicted to martial arts. What Xianming loved the most was fighting, fighting, and fighting. To be able to become one of the 12 shaman kings, he must have a skill. Very strong. Hutu's eyes were deep. Very strong indeed. Gomong's face was solemn. They were so far away that ordinary warriors couldn't even sense the aura, let alone see it accurately. However, at this moment, there were the top powerhouses of the wizard clan here. Shaman emperors and shaman kings were not ordinary among the top sage kings. Strong and weak, not to mention aura and experience. They could tell clearly by intuition. Boom, boom, boom. The earth shook and the sky shook. The attack power was quite terrifying. The originally evenly matched situation was suddenly broken. The demon clan, which had been suppressed, finally welcomed a new era. With the arrival of the mysterious powerhouse of the demon clan, the whole situation was suddenly reversed. He directly attacked Shaman King Zhu Rong face to face. Not only was he not inferior, but he was also suppressing him. Bang! The flames burned fiercely. However, Zhu Rong was fighting and retreating at the same time, roaring angrily. He was completely caught off guard. Zhu Rong was careless. Gomong's eyes were burning. He used too much energy to deal with those ordinary demons, Hutu said in a low voice. What a cunning demon clan. Xianming's eyes were bright. He stared straight ahead, and his fighting spirit couldn't stop gushing out. He murmured, if this continues, Zhu Rong will definitely lose. His expression kept changing, and his aura was getting stronger. Xianming couldn't hold back and was about to rush out. However, sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. A hissing sound was heard. It seemed to be the only sound left in the entire space. The terrifying power instantly pulled the three people's thoughts. Skyark. At this moment, it was spinning in the void, emitting a terrifying sound. That feeling was like a cobra coiling its tail and hissing as it prepared to hunt its prey. Dezhang's gold-threaded robe flickered with light. He looked straight ahead with a dignified aura. The inferior demon clan actually has so many talents. It's just the 12 demonic stars. There's a huge gap between their talent and that of the shaman tribe. But first, there's that macaque, and then there's this bull. His eyes were filled with killing intent. Which Emperor Jiang clenched his fists so hard that his veins popped out. A terrifying aura instantly enveloped the three shaman kings, causing them to be overwhelmed with shock. Big brother. Xianming's eyes sparkled. He clasped his fists and was about to ask for a fight. However, he couldn't kneel down. A terrifying force was holding him up. Xianming was puzzled and looked at Dezhang. Hutu and Zhu Meng also looked at him. You can't defeat him, said Dezhang, looking at Xianming. Glancing at Hutu and Zhu Meng, which Emperor Zhang's eyes sparkled. Not to mention any one of you. Even the three of you can't defeat him. Gazing into the distance, there was a burning fire. However, they felt powerless, as if they were an arrow at the end of its flight. Dezhang said in a low voice, he's not weaker than the demon commander. Boom! Hutu and the other two were shaken, their faces changing color. They knew who the demon clan commander Dezhang was talking about. That day, the battle in the hot land was earth-shattering. Although the demon commander was defeated, everyone could see how strong he was. If the Shaman King's power wasn't restrained, it wouldn't have been easy for him to win. And now, there was a demon clan expert who wasn't weaker than him. It was unbelievable. Do you think he defeated Zhu Rong because of the timing? That he was opportunistic? You're wrong. I'm telling you, his real power is far from being used. If I'm not wrong, he should be the expert who came with the demon commander that day. No wonder even the genius of the ancient race was defeated. Which Emperor Zhang's eyes sparkled with admiration, but more of it was murderous. The stronger the demon clan was, the worse it was for the witch clan. Hutu, Xianming, listen. Dezhang shouted with a serious face. Yes. The two lowered their heads and got down on one knee. Without my order, you can't lead the army to battle. Dezhang's eyes sparkled with cold light, but his words were protective. Yes, brother. Hutu and Xianming were unwilling, but they still agreed. Zhu Meng. Dezhang glanced at them with bright light. Which emperor? Please give me your orders. Zhu Meng cupped his hands. Sizzle. Sizzle. Tianqi's voice was ear-piercing. Zhang's eyes changed unpredictably. He thought for a while and said, "When I'm not here, you're in charge of the military affairs. Act according to the situation. Remember, it's better to do nothing than make mistakes." "Yes, which emperor?" Zhu Mang said seriously. The light in his eyes flashed. His body flashed and instantly landed on the arc in the sky. With a show sound, he shot out like a meteor. Zhang finally made his move. Yan Imperial City. There was a difference between having help and not having help. Under the care of Thousand Love Emperor and the other two, Lin Feng quickly took the time to draw Ziyu. Although it was just a glimpse, and the doppelganger couldn't remember the whole picture, Ziyu's appearance didn't change much. Only her hairstyle changed, and she looked more mature. Soon, the portrait was done. But, Lin Feng looked at the drawing board in his hand and smiled bitterly. He could perfectly imitate and draw an even more complicated inscription formation without any mistakes. However, it was so difficult to draw a portrait based on his memory. Even though he felt that his facial features, body shape, and face shape were all on point, the purple moon that he created looked like a completely different person. Not to mention 70 or 80%, wasn't even 50% similar. Shi covered her mouth and laughed. Thousand Love Emperor also smiled knowingly. Seeing Lin Feng helplessly crumpling the drawing paper into a ball, the two women felt warm in their hearts. Lin Feng's strength made them feel that he was too high to reach, but now he had become a normal person again. He was so approachable. "Zixin, will you draw it?" Lin Feng said to Zixin helplessly. No. Zixin waved her hand and blushed. She tapped her index finger against her index finger. Obviously, she didn't know how to draw. Lin Feng then looked at Qian Lianhuang. She smiled and said, "Although I know a little about music, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and I could draw 80 to 90% similar to it, I can only draw the shape and not the essence." "Wow." Zixin looked at Thousand Love Emperor with admiration. "Sister Qian, you're great. 80 or 90% is enough," Lin Feng said with a smile. Sure enough, there was nothing Thousand Love Emperor didn't know. She was a rare genius of a human race. She was indeed extraordinary. Thousand Love Emperor smiled. "Why do you have to settle for the second best? There are better painters here than me." "Better painters?" Lin Feng was stunned. His eyes lit up as he looked at the sky. Jinji? His painting skills were better than Thousand Love Emperor's? "Yes, I almost forgot." Lin Feng nodded and smiled. Jinji's father, Jin Wan, was one of the legendary inscription masters in the southern region. Jinji had mentioned that although he was mainly a warrior, his ancestral skills were nothing difficult. He could even build a teleportation array at will. So how could he draw people? Inscription arrays were thousands of times more delicate than painting. It was much more difficult. Although he could draw an inscription array perfectly, it was a copy, which was different from a real inscription master. Portrait painting? Jinji was stunned. "Yes, are you confident?" Lin Feng asked curiously. Jinji laughed. "I thought it was something else. I don't dare to say anything else, but when it comes to painting, no one dares to say they're number one." Keep bragging." Zixin wrinkled her nose. Jinji glanced at her and smiled. "Learn a little. You're a lady from a noble family who is good at everything." As he spoke, he ignored Zixin, who was blushing. Jinji picked up the paper and put it down. He held the brush in one hand and the paper in the other. In an instant, the feeling was completely different. "Oh." Lin Feng moved and nodded slowly. Sure enough, Thousand Love Emperor was right. Just this posture alone was enough to show his skills. "Let's begin, Brother Lin." Jinji's expression was serious. There was no trace of laughter. "Okay," Lin Feng replied. Everyone had their own strengths. Lin Feng was the strongest among them. Thousand Love Emperor had experience and a steady personality. She was the most suitable to be the executor of this team. As for Zixin and Jinji, they both had their own strengths. For example, Jinji was showing his skills now. Zixin stared blankly at the side. Lin Feng's eyes were also bright. It was too perfect. The person seemed to be coming out of the painting. With a casual wave of the brush, the appearance of a woman was perfectly reflected on black ink and white paper. There was no flaw to be found. This was the highest level of painting. The eye is the foundation of painting. Whether it's an object, a person, or even a landscape painting, the eye must be found. Just now, the painting was completed. Jean Ji put down the brush with a serious expression. "How is it, Brother Lin? Is it good?" Jean Ji turned to look at Lin Feng. "It's exactly the same." Lin Feng smiled and gave a thumbs up. He couldn't help but be impressed. The purple moon in the painting was no different from the one he saw just now. It was as if the purple moon was imprinted in the painting. It wasn't exactly lifelike, but it was exactly the same. This kind of foundation was hard to imagine. "I believe that with this painting, there won't be any mistakes." Lin Feng nodded and praised. "Leave the rest to me and Sister Jixin." Thousand Love Emperor smiled faintly and gently picked up the painting. "It's better to leave the dealings to us. Then I'll have to trouble you." Lin Feng smiled. "It's a small matter." Thousand Love Emperor smiled faintly and then left with Shi Jixin, looking at the two disappearing figures and then at Jean Ji, who had resumed staring at the crowd. Lin Feng's lips curled into a sincere smile. His heart was filled with warmth. Everyone was busy working for him, but they didn't complain at all. They were true friends. Chapter 1353. Fallen Shaman Mountain Range. It was destined to be a classic battle. Clang! The heavenly arc pierced through the sky. Wizard Emperor Zhang's appearance set off the climax of the battle. At this moment, Zhurong was already in a sorry state. The fire burning all over his body seemed to be extinguished. He was panting as if he had been forced into a miserable state. It was a half-naked bull-headed man with a huge axe in his hand. His aura was majestic. Bull demon, axe after axe, seemingly without any fancy moves. However, it was actually a heaven-defying technique. Every axe strike contained a profound axe intent. The slow attacks were like a five-fingered mountain pressing down on Zhurong. He did not even have the slightest strength to resist. And this was not his full strength. Bang! The huge axe and the heavenly arc clashed, causing turbulence and space to tremble. The battle between Bull Demon and Wizard Emperor Jiang ended with a tie. They pulled apart the distance between them and floated in the sky like two peerless gods of war. Their auras were not inferior at all. However, Wizard Emperor Jiang's true strength should be superior. However, the gap between the top experts was actually not that big. Sometimes, a one-on-one battle depended on the compatibility of the two parties' strength and whether or not they countered each other. Back then, the reason why the Shaman Emperor Jiang was able to defeat the Demon Clan's commander was because of his strength and the perfect coordination of the heavenly arcs. More importantly, it was because the Tao of space countered each other, causing the Demon Clan's commander, the Great Saint, to be unable to unleash his full strength. However, Wizard Emperor Jiang was not a match for Bull Demon now. Moreover, when faced with the Bull Demon King who was not inferior to the Demon Clan's commander, the Great Saint, in close combat, which Emperor Jiang was slightly restrained. This was the reason why Di Jiang said that Bull Demon was not inferior to the Demon Clan commander. It was not a lie. It was truly from his standpoint. The enemy in front of him was very strong. Demon Clan. Ha ha! Xiong Bao, the demon monarch of the Violent Bear Clan, laughed loudly. Let's see how Di Jiang will die now. Xiong Bao looked at the other three demonic beast emperors and said with his bronze bell-like eyes, "Why are you still standing there? Let's go. We have to kill the leader first. Let's kill this bullshit shaman emperor." Xiong Bao's eyes were wide open. The other three demon emperors furrowed their brows and wore half-smiles on their faces. "I say, old bear, aren't you a bit too straightforward?" Fox Princess smiled charmingly. "If it's just to kill Di Jiang, there'll be plenty of opportunities. Why bother fighting in front of the formation?" The Dragon Ox Clan's Demon Monarch, by Yun Lei, said. "Furthermore, with the combined strength of us four emperors, it's easy to defeat Dijiang. However, in the entire Douling world, a cultivator capable of trapping Dijiang has yet to be born. Doubt of Space. As the powerful being in the Douling world who had the deepest understanding of the Tao of Space, Dijiang was not only difficult to kill, but even more difficult to trap. As long as he wanted to leave, no one could stop him. In the Second Great Witch-Demon War, Dijiang had single-handedly turned the tide. Countless times, he had narrowly escaped death from the encirclement of the demon clan. This was where his ability lay. If we don't kill Dijiang, why lure him out? Xiong Bao said in a low voice. The demon emperors looked helpless. Kue Tianyuan frowned and said, "Didn't we discuss this before? Didn't you hear clearly, old bear?" "What?" Xiong Bao's lantern-sized eyes widened as he said in shock. The demon emperors were speechless. "Ignore him," Bai Yunlei said in a low voice. "Call him when we need this bear. I don't even know how you became the demon emperor." Fox Princess frowned slightly and sighed helplessly. "Coquettish Fox, what did you say?" Xiong Bao was furious and waved his mace. "Enough!" Kue Tianyuan shouted coldly. His gaze shot toward Xiong Bao and Fox Princess like lightning. "What time is it now? Why are you still fooling around? Let's get down to business." Bai Yunlei's expression was also unfriendly. "If the two of you don't want to participate, please leave." Fox Princess and Xiong Bao mumbled a few words. They knew they were in the wrong and didn't dare to make a ruckus. "All right, human, tell us the plan in detail." Bai Yunlei looked at Lam Tok Ti and said in a low voice. At this moment, the four demon emperors' gazes converged. Facing four powerful existences at the peak of the saint level, Lam Tok Ti's expression didn't change. He nodded with a faint smile. The war continued on. As time passed, it became more and more explosive and crazy. The witch race and the demon race were originally in a situation where one side would not rest until the other was dead. Furthermore, now that their leaders were fighting, their hatred and killing intent were magnified to the extreme. The defending side would always have the upper hand. The strength of the defending demon race didn't decrease, but increased instead. Although they were suppressed at the beginning, this didn't mean anything. The demon race didn't send out all their troops. On the other hand, the witch race's troops were on the surface. They were as many as they had. The vanguard, the middle, and the rear. Although the war had just begun, once they fell into a disadvantage, to turn the situation around, it wouldn't be easy. The demon race became stronger the more they fought. On the other hand, the aura of the witch race was gradually declining. They were spirited in one go, weak in the second, and exhausted in the third. After attacking for a long time, they couldn't take them down. Furthermore, Zhu Ron was seriously injured, causing the morale of the witch race to decline. On the other hand, the defending demon race maintained a fixed standard and stood tall like an old pine tree. Bit by bit, they weakened the strength of the witch race. Time passed slowly. On the other side, Witch Emperor Dijiang and Bull Demon had long disappeared. No one knew where they were. Perhaps they didn't want to affect the battle between the two armies, or perhaps they wanted to find a place where no one was around to fight to the death. Or perhaps there were other reasons. However, no matter what the reason was, the impact on the witch race was greater than the demon race. They had lost their backbone. The demon race could lose a new commander. However, the witch race couldn't lose Witch Emperor Dijiang. In the Second Great Magi Demon War, the advantage of the witch race and the weakness of the demon race seemed to have suddenly changed. With an ugly expression, Gomong looked into the distance as cold sweat dripped down his forehead. At this moment, he truly felt how heavy the pressure on his shoulders was. It was better to do nothing than make mistakes. Just 8 words completely trapped him. He couldn't advance or retreat. "Gomong, we can't delay any longer." Hutu gritted her teeth with an ugly expression. "But the Witch Emperor has given the order first. If we go against it..." Gomong's face was ashen as he clenched his fists and trembled slightly. As time passed, it became more and more dangerous. Just an hour ago, a few peak-stage, Saint-level experts suddenly appeared and broke the originally balanced situation. Originally, the morale of the witch race was already low. Now, they were in a sorry state. Big Brother didn't say that we can't launch an all-out attack, Gomong. Hutu said anxiously. Now, the vanguard of the witch race is already retreating. It's like breaking an arm if we rely on the ancient race alone. How can we win against the demon race? In less than 15 minutes, when the vanguard is completely wiped out, it will definitely affect the morale of the middle army. At that time, the outcome will be unpredictable even if we fight again. Morale was easy to fall and difficult to grow, especially when two armies fought. The difference between them was even smaller. Let me think about it. Gomong paced back and forth with an ugly expression. Even though he was smooth and slick in dealing with people, he only truly understood the feeling of being powerless at this moment. His decision to lead the entire witch race army was related to the rise and fall of the witch race. Such a heavy responsibility fell on his shoulders, making it hard for him to breathe. At this moment, bang, bang, a shocking explosion was heard, bringing with it a tragic sound. The three of them looked over and were instantly shocked. The one who let out the tragic cry was none other than Witch King Jerome. First, he was injured by the bull demon. Now, he was besieged by a few peak-stage experts of the demon race. His light injuries turned into serious injuries as he retreated step by step. The situation was rather tragic. I can't wait any longer. Hutu gritted her teeth and immediately rushed out. Compared to listening to her big brother, saving Zhurong was more important to Hutu now. Everything else could wait. Like a bolt of lightning, Xianming's eyes lit up when he saw Hutu's ice-breaking action. Joy appeared on his face as he instantly followed her out, leaving Gomong behind. At this moment, he was a little confused. Gomong's eyes flickered, his expression uncertain. I'll take the risk. After gritting his teeth, Gomong finally made a decision. Right now, he could no longer wait for the Witch Emperor's order. Like Hutu Xianming, he could not just watch the vanguard die like this. Fight! Yin Imperial City. The four of them were divided into two groups. Lin Feng and Jin Ji, one in front and one behind. Both of them had their eyes fixed on the area. They were afraid that they would miss something. Thousand Love Empress and Shi Jixin took the portrait and entered the building to find someone to ask. The probability of each method was not high, but the cumulative effect was quite good. Most importantly, they could not lose their confidence. Many miracles actually appeared when they worked hard to the point of despair. There were hundreds of buildings in the area. With Thousand Love Empress's black crystal token, she could only enter less than a third of the area. However, it was better than nothing, especially those buildings with many people. Martial artists who had lived in Yin Imperial City for a long time might recognize Purple Moon. The relationship between people was sometimes very complicated, but sometimes it was also very simple. 3 days. Lin Feng thought to himself, if Purple Moon did not appear for 3 days, then the probability of her appearing was very small. After all, there was a teleportation point here. According to Thousand Love Empress, there were only 4 such teleportation points in the entire Yin Imperial City. However, there were countless of such buildings. The probability of entering a building here was too small compared to the teleportation point. Yin Imperial City. The minimum requirement for humans to enter is the Sage level. As for the ancient race, it is the Star Sector level. Even if Purple Moon is an ancient race, her strength should be at the Star Sector level. Moreover, she can enter and leave freely. She should be very familiar with this place. If Purple Moon does not appear in these 3 days, I can investigate from this angle. Perhaps I will find something. Lin Feng thought to himself. As he waited, he thought. He had to strike while the iron was hot. It was not easy to get a clue and news about Ziyao. How could he not grasp it? The main reason he came to the sorcerer territory this time was to find Ziyao. Now that the third great sorcerer-demon war had begun, there was great danger everywhere. However, if Ziyao was by his side, with his current strength, he could definitely protect her. Just as he was thinking about it, suddenly, beep beep, beep beep beep, beep beep beep. The communication compass on his left hand flashed red. Lin Feng's expression changed drastically. Chapter 1354. What was going on? Lin Feng's heart thumped wildly. His communication compass sounded an alarm again. Lin Feng regained his senses and glanced over. The message was clearly displayed. It was Shi Jixin. Something had happened again. Lin Feng's expression changed. At this moment, Jin Ji appeared in front of him. The communication compass on his left hand was displaying a bright red signal. It was like a bloody disaster. If not for the fact that she was in danger, Shi Jixin would not have pressed the help button. Pa! Lin Feng's eyes shone coldly. He quickly pressed the button and shrank the area. I know where they are. Jin Ji's expression was serious as he pressed down on Lin Feng's right hand. Let's go. Lin Feng's eyes shone as he looked into Jin Ji's eyes. Everything was understood without words. In an instant, two figures dashed out like cheetahs. It was a pillar-shaped building. It stood tall. Although it was not big, it was quite tall, like a pillar that reached the sky. It was made of desolate crystal. Just looking at the building's construction cost was not cheap. Lin Feng's eyes shone. As a weapon refiner, even if he did not know ores like the back of his hand, he was at least proficient in them. He knew the price very well. People came and went. It was quite lively. In this area, this pillar-shaped building was definitely one of the top 3 places with the flow of people. What was this place? Lin Feng did not know. Neither did Jin Ji. However, there was one thing they knew. It's here. Jin Ji's eyes shone as he clenched his fists anxiously. Step. Lin Feng took a step forward and stood in front of Jin Ji. His gaze landed on the top of the pillar-shaped building. He did not recognize the words of the sorcerer tribe, but he could understand the picture on the door. It was a black crystal token, exactly the same as Qian Lian Huang's. This meant that to enter this place, one had to have an identity token that surpassed the black crystal token. The requirements were quite harsh, especially now that they were in such a hurry. Where could they find the black crystal token? Lin Feng, let's go in quickly. Jin Ji's eyes were red, and his expression was anxious. Seeing the red light on the communication compass, Jin Ji's heart was pierced. It was as if he had lost his composure. It was only when he was in trouble that he could truly see the extent of his feelings. As he spoke, he tried to force his way in like a bull. Bah! Lin Feng grabbed hold of Jin Ji. The latter turned around, his eyes bloodshot. Don't worry. Lin Feng's expression was solemn as he said slowly, Sovereign Lien said that killing is forbidden in Yan Imperial City. They will be fine for now, but they should be in big trouble. Looking at Jin Ji, Lin Feng said in a low voice, but if we force our way in now, not only will we not be able to save them, it will be our turn to be in big trouble. Yan Imperial City had strict rules. Without an identity token, trespassing into an area with insufficient authority was a serious crime. In the territory of the shamans, there was no need for him to strike a stone with an egg. But Jin Ji was so anxious that he was sweating. Wait, I have an idea. Lin Feng's eyes were burning, but his heart was very calm. Once bitten, twice shy. Being anxious would not bring him any benefits. Instead, it would mess things up. Glancing around, Lin Feng's eyes brightened as he disappeared from where he stood. Jin Ji's expression changed. He clenched his fists, and his body trembled slightly. However, he tried his best to control his emotions. Wah! Lin Feng appeared in front of a man. Brother, please help me. Looking at the man in luxurious clothes in front of him, Lin Feng said seriously. The man in luxurious clothes had a human aura. The man in luxurious clothes frowned slightly. He glanced at Lin Feng and said coldly, Sorry, I don't know you. With that, he brushed past him with a cold face. The man in luxurious clothes had a look of surprise in his eyes. He muttered in his heart, but in an instant, Chi. Behind him, a terrifying aura rose. Without turning his head, he could feel the terrifying killing intent enveloping him. He felt that if he took another step, his blood would splatter 3 feet. One could not judge a book by its cover. The man in luxurious clothes shuddered. That young man's strength was unfathomable. What do you want? The man in luxurious clothes said in a low voice. He pretended to be calm, but cold sweat seeped out of his forehead. I'll say it again. Trouble. Please help me. Lin Feng pointed at the amethyst spear. His voice was cold, and he deliberately emphasized the word trouble. His eyes were cold and clear. He did not care about the gazes around him, nor did he care about what the man in luxurious clothes in front of him thought. You dare to make a move in Yan Imperial City? The man in luxurious clothes said coldly. You can bet. Lin Feng's voice was calm, but the killing intent was real. At this moment, the surrounding air seemed to condense. After countless killings, Lin Feng was no longer the ignorant person he used to be. The man in luxurious clothes' expression changed, and his chest rose and fell. Did he dare to bet? He did not know anything else, but he was sure of one thing. If the young man behind him wanted to kill him, it would be a piece of cake. What do you want me to help you with? The man in luxurious clothes asked in a hoarse voice. It's simple, Lin Feng said indifferently, as if he had already guessed the man's answer. I need an identity token to bring us to a place. The method was simple and direct. Since Thousand Love Sovereign could bring Shi Jixin in with the black crystal token, then the man in luxurious clothes could bring him and Jin Ji in. His luck was pretty good. The man in luxurious clothes' identity token was even higher than Thousand Love Sovereign's. White Stone Token. With the man in luxurious clothes leading the way, Lin Feng and Jin Ji entered in an instant. Their figures disappeared at the door. At this moment, in a building not far away, a light door flashed, and a beautiful figure slowly appeared. The purple figure was thin and beautiful. She brushed past Lin Feng and slowly disappeared into the night. Sometimes, many things were destined. Fallen Witch Mountain Range. The Witch Tribe's main army was attacking. Gomang had already made up his mind and couldn't care less about the consequences. He thought that Witch Sovereign Di Jiang would be back soon. It would be enough to delay him. Who would have thought that Witch Sovereign Di Jiang would not appear after almost 4 hours? The battle situation was changing rapidly. How could they delay it? Since Hutu and Xianming had started it, he would not miss out. When a general was outside, he would not obey the orders of the emperor. Boom, boom, boom. Under the cover of the ancient tribe's attack, the main army of the Witch Tribe advanced together. Compared to the vanguard team, there were nearly 10 times more soldiers. This was the true strength of the Witch Tribe army. Not only that, there were a few peak martial saints, although they were not as powerful as the Witch King, but it was enough to stabilize and even turn the situation around. Vast and mighty, the Witch Tribe army advanced layer by layer. The war drums filled the sky, and the morale was high. The Witch Tribe regained the situation they had lost. On the other hand, the Demon Tribe suffered setbacks. Even the peak martial saints who had besieged Zhurong could not protect themselves. As Hutu and Xianming joined the battle, the Witch Tribe erupted. The Demon Tribe. They're here. Haha, they're really here. Kuei Tanyuan laughed heartily, and his eyes sparkled, just as Earth Splitter expected. Good, very good. Ji Yunlei nodded with satisfaction. He looked at Lam Tok Ti with a friendly expression. Fox Princess moved her nose slightly, as if she did not care. However, there was a hint of appreciation in her charming eyes. Only Xiong Bao sat on the ground, holding his mace with both hands and resting his head on his hands. He was snoring loudly. Everyone has a weakness. Lam Tok Ti's eyes sparkled. Even the famous Shaman Emperor Di Jiang is no exception. Perhaps in terms of strength, strategy, and leadership, which Emperor Di Jiang is the best in the entire Douling world. He is flawless. However, just like the edge of a sword, the sharper it is, the more fragile it is. Lam Tok Ti grinned coldly, and his eyes were bright. Which Emperor Di Jiang seems perfect and invulnerable. However, it is precisely because of his ability that he has a weakness in his character. He is too confident. Gomang was going all out. It meant that the entire Witch Tribe army was going all out. They attacked crazily, as if they were prepared to kill the demon tribe in one go. There was no way for them to make a comeback. The witch tribe had an absolute advantage in one-on-one and two-on-two battles. Coupled with the cooperation of the ancient race, the witch tribe had an absolute advantage in a battle of the same number of people. Even if the demon tribe had the geographical advantage and had 2 or 3 times the number of people, it was useless. Gomong was not incapable. Otherwise, Di Jiang would not have handed the important task to him and not to his 2 sworn brothers. Gomong's order was just right. If it had been a moment later, the vanguard of the witch tribe would have been completely wiped out. Now, the middle army had followed the 2 arrows, Hutu and Xianming, to penetrate the place guarded by the demon tribe. Everywhere it passed, flesh and blood splattered everywhere, destroying everything in its path. Hutu and Xianming were too powerful. They were definitely heaven-defying existences in such a battle. Although it's against the order, as long as we win this battle, we can atone for our sins. Gomong clenched his fists with a deep gaze. He did not charge forward. Instead, he stayed at the back to coordinate the overall situation. This was not because he was afraid of death, but because it was what a commander should do. If he were a general, he would charge at the front like Hutu and Xianming. But now, he had to adapt to his new identity. He had to win this battle. We can't give the demon tribe any chance to counterattack. Sending troops to attack bit by bit suits the demon tribe's appetite. It's not good for us to fight a war of attrition. Either we don't fight, or we fight. We'll decide the winner in one round. Gomong floated in the air, his eyes bright. He was paying attention to the battle situation. The situation was very good. The witch tribe was unstoppable, and the demon tribe was full of whales. Everything was going in a perfect direction. Given the current situation, the demon tribe would definitely collapse in less than 2 hours. At that time, not only would he be able to atone for his sins, but he would also be able to make a great contribution. If the demon tribe lost this battle, the scales of the battle between the witch tribe and the demon tribe would tilt towards the witch tribe. Looks like there's no need to prepare a backup plan. The rear army only needs to protect the ancient race. There's no need to cover the rear and rescue them. Gomong smiled. He was in a good mood. He had already made a plan. It would be best if the middle army could win the general attack. If they could not win, they would give the demon tribe a warning. If the situation was still balanced, or they only had a slight advantage, the rear army and the ancient race would cover the rear. The middle army would retreat quickly after they succeeded in their attack. It would be a strategic retreat. At that time, he would not ask for credit, but for peace and stability. But now everything was too perfect. Things were developing according to his expectations, which was the best ending he could hope for. Actually, it's not that difficult to lead the entire witch tribe. Gomong smiled knowingly. The burden on his shoulders was much lighter. Seeing that they had the upper hand, he felt smug. The demon tribe that was retreating in defeat were like stray dogs. They threw down mountain-high corpses and lost their morale. The witch tribe was about to win. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.